And welcome to another exciting installment of the Terrorisk podcast. We have a special episode tonight for you folks, or today, whenever it is you view this. We got Brendan back on the mic after a long hiatus. He's been battling some problems with substance stuff. You want to specify?
Not really substances. I haven't really.
Is a substance.
Yeah, alcohol. Yeah. No, I had my problems with everything else in the past. I was able to put it down pretty fine, but the booze got me in the end. I ended up at detox. I was on a little vacation from my job, and by the time I had to go back into work, I was waking up really shaky, and I wasn't even able to hold down enough liquor.
All right, wait, hold up. Let's rewind for the audience. All right. The last time we had Brendan on the show was last year in summer of 2023. It was actually around this time of the year. And Brendan, you were working at Wagner around then?
Wagner College.
Yeah. So
As a cook.
and then like you kind of, and then after you just started like falling off, and I guess you fell into some money shit, and alcohol was just making everything like a lot worse and less stable.
Well, I was drinking heavily all the time before that.
Yeah, I remember that. But that's like what you and I have always done since high school. But it's like now it's like hitting you, I guess, differently at our age than it used to hit us like when we were younger.
Well, it's not my first detox off of booze, though. I was drinking all day at work, and in the past, while I was living in Texas, a few times I would, try to pick up again, start drinking just at night, but get like near blackout every night, and then before I know it, I'm drinking little nips throughout the day, just all day.
Okay. So you didn't. It's not like you were. It's like what you said before. You weren't drinking to get fucked up really anymore. You were just drinking to maintain after you stopped after you started getting the shakes.
Yes, the shakes.
Yeah, the shakes. The fucking shakes. A lot of our friends had the shakes. A lot of our friends do have the shakes.
Yeah, it's not a good sign. That means you're dying.
Yeah.
It means your nervous system's failing you, and it's so used to the constant influx of alcohol that it's just trying to deregulate itself.
Well, when guys get into situations like that, it's like, okay, well, you're a big boy. Tough luck. It's either you're gonna die or you fucking help yourself. Whereas when a girl gets into that situation, they just fucking get knocked up. And then suddenly, like, that just supposedly automatically fixes their lives. And it really doesn't. They just kick the issues down the road until, like, their kids eventually inherit it or some shit. But yeah, so that's how guys and girls kind of deal with addiction differently. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're like a busted, ugly bitch, no, I'm kidding. if you're a less than hot looking girl and you're dealing with addiction, that's like a tough draw. You might as well be a man.
Actually, I feel if you're really hot and you end up going to meetings, it might actually be a little bit harder for you because now
everyone's trying to fuck you.
Yeah, everyone's trying to fuck you now, and and all of a sudden you're trying to be at a meeting and you realize everyone's kind of looking over at you like.
But it doesn't matter if you're like a hot girl at meetings too, because by then you've already done like a bunch of like really awful things that otherwise you wouldn't be at the meeting. Like you're at the meeting because as a hot girl, you like sucked your landlord's dick too many times because you couldn't pay the rent, or you fucking you've been fired from like 3 jobs in a span of like 7 months.
Like we have a saying in there: nobody comes in on a winning streak.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nobody just walks into a meeting and goes, yeah, I think I might be having a couple too many. I'm gonna go to a meeting. No, people stumble in there. People are like, holy shit, I'm fucked. You have to be pretty fucked.
Well, another thing is it's like alcoholism isn't one of those things where like as a therapist you could look at it and you could bank on that. Like if you're a therapist and you see like someone coming out as like trans or poly, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, that's good business. That's good for me. That's like I could eat off that. Whereas if they see an alcoholic like who just can't even function, like this motherfucker doesn't even have health insurance. This motherfucker has no way to pay for any kind of treatment or therapy. Like nah, they're like dead weight to me. So it's like therapists even like view alcoholics in a different light than something, I don't want to say ridiculous as like polyamory. But.
Well, the thing is, doctors and therapists for many years, like the reason these, like these programs got started, and just because, like in the 1930s, back then, the alcoholics would go to the doctor and the doctor would like prescribe them like some kind of sedative, like, okay, take this for a couple days, come off the booze, and then they'd come back and be like, yeah, I'm addicted to both of them now. And eventually they didn't have like detoxes or rehab. They would send them to sanitariums, like mental asylums.
mental asylum.
Eventually their wives would like commit them to an asylum, and they would like try to like,
hopefully they die.
they would try to give them a fucking lobotomy and shit. Like, they had no idea what to fucking do with people, you know. They're like, we tried to help you and you just keep fucking doing it. What we don't know what to do. You know, therapists really can't help that, you know.
Well, another big problem is you know, in relative to like drinking and like historical alcohol consumption of humankind, like the truth is men live a lot longer than they used to back then. You know, back then it was normal for like a guy to like go to war or something and die by the time he was like our age, like well before like the average man would be dead, you know, whether through poverty or war or something. So it was okay for us men to be like alcoholics in the very short lifespan we had, that everybody had. You know, it's like it was okay. But then like, you know, life started getting good. We started industrializing. We started dividing and distributing labor more evenly. And I mean, it's not perfect, definitely far from perfect, but now we do live like a little longer. We're still drinking like we used to back then, but we're not actually doing anything that gets us killed. So now we're kind of just like existing while with like wet brain, you know.
Well, I guess back then, you know, a lot of people just die before they can get cirrhosis or something. Yeah. You know, like it takes a while.
You got too drunk, someone pisses you off, you piss off someone, the wrong person, they kill you. You know,
because like, you know, I remember, you know, after years I was doing, doing cocaine. I was doing a lot of ecstasy. I was on heroin.
Maybe
like,
your problem is you had it too good while you first got into drugs. You didn't get beat up enough or something like by cops.
Well, like I was on heroin for a couple of years. Well, not shooting it, sniffing it, but like, and then like all the booze. And I remember like going to a doctor while I was in Texas. I'm like, I want to check my liver, and they're like, everything's fine. I'm like, what does it fucking take? What does a man gotta do to fuck his liver up if I haven't yet? You know, but like last time I was going to the doctor, and I didn't want to get extra results because they were like, they gave me some blood work, and they were like, your liver enzyme. They came in looking concerned. They're like, your liver enzymes are really wacky. And like, I don't want to admit anything to myself or anyone else that I might need to stop drinking or something. So I was like, oh, well, you know, I had a tooth pain, so I've been taking a lot of acetaminophen. Maybe that's it. They're like, no, that wouldn't do this. And so finally, when I did stop drinking, I went and they found like it was like a small one, a 2 centimeter
tumor,
no, bruise on the liver,
oh,
like
okay.
a lesion or something like that. So it was, the damage was starting to get done. Like if I would have kept going that way, it would have like, even if I would have kept going from then up until now, the way I was going, I would have probably had like, you know, the beginnings of like liver disease and stuff.
And plus,
like
diabetes has to be a factor, like your body's ability to break down sugars and shit.
Well, I realized when I did have a slip, it does affect the blood sugars in a way where like when last time I was going to do the podcast molasses. And my blood sugar was going low and it wouldn't stop.
It's because the booze.
And I was drinking juice. The thing is, when you're drinking all the time, your liver is focusing so much on processing that it's not able to process sugars quickly. So normally, say if my blood sugar went low right now, I would drink some juice, blood sugar would go back up within like 15, 20 minutes. But when it's processing booze all the time, it might take an hour or two.
Bro, look at it this way. Like you could not have diabetes, and alcohol, like as a baseline, causes inflammation throughout your body.
Yeah.
So like, you know, like that's already like you're already kind of playing with fire in that sense as a non-diabetic person. So as a person with diabetes, and then your body suddenly like your system's getting in like inflamed by fucking like an excess amount of what like fucking molasses, like fucking fermented shit, you know.
Well, if I was able to, you know, give my body a break. And you know, but I just, some people aren't able to, and like, you know.
Well, it's also like you were depressed too.
Yeah, but you know, see, we have a thing about alcoholism, and at least in the program, where they call it a threefold disease. First is, and they thought of this in the 30s. Some doctors said we don't know, but it seems to be a manifestation of an allergy. That there are moderate drinkers, there are even heavy drinkers, and if they have a sufficient reason to stop or cut down, they're able to. They'll enjoy it, but they have control. Yeah. Now, but then the doctors were finding out there's a certain subgroup of people, like a certain percentage, that no matter how strong the desire is, they just can't cut down or put it back.
Oh.
And they found out, like they've been finding out recently, there is some people's brains process it differently in a way to where they call it the phenomenon of craving. And that means once you put any into your system, it develops this intense craving inside of your body that wants more and more. So it's like the more you drink, like say if I had one beer, I'm now thirstier. And the more I drink, the more I want. And it just like I might sip the first one pretty slowly, and all of a sudden it starts going faster and faster and faster and faster. And I just get this like you get this like craving for it, where it's just like almost impossible to stop until like something stops you, like you pass out or something that.
The thing is, like things like this, it's like it's a very it has to be experienced from the first person. So it's not like you could ever have like all you could do is really like give your belief, and I believe like that kind of phenomenon or framework of genetic expression exists. It's just I do also personally believe in neuroplasticity. I do believe in the mind's capability to alter your actual physical biological buildup. I mean, I'm not saying your body can like just think itself out of cancer. You know what? I'll actually, this is my favorite quote. You can't think yourself into having a better body, but you could easily think yourself into having a shittier one, a much shittier one. You know what I mean? Like when you stress yourself out, when you're depressed, it physically harms you. It damages your brain, it damages your circulation, it damages your nervous system. Like it fucks you up. You know, like hormonally, everything.
Well, they also call it a progressive disease because it progresses. Like they say, you can't go backwards; you can only go forwards. So, like, the more you do it, the more the worse it gets. So, and there's even been people who.
But you know, this isn't just about alcohol. Like, all right. So I don't know if you remember, but since the last time we spoke, do you remember my like 30-day semen retention project?
No,
I did 30 days of semen retention, like no ejaculating at all. Yeah. And since then, I quit porn. I'm done with porn. I'm completely done with porn. My God, dude! Like the difference in life, it's crazy. I can't even. I could sit here and go on and on about how not abstaining from porn will literally change your life because of how ingrained and normalized and how fucked up it is. It's actually very psychologically damaging. It's also biologically damaging. You know, you're not supposed. I mean, look, the act of ejaculating in and of itself, getting pleasure from your own body, that in and of itself is not bad. It's just your environmental context that you're giving the act and how your brain, how your subconscious is going to relate that sensation with the current context of your life. For example, let's say you're depressed and, you know, you drink, you isolate yourself, you don't have any extracurricular activities in your life, you don't go out and socialize much, you just stay home, drink, and jerk off every fucking day, all fucking day. Do you know what that does to you? It's basically hitting your dopamine receptors like a fucking piñata, but without actually doing anything in life to warrant that reward. So it's like you're ejaculating as if you're like fucking Genghis Khan and you just like pillaged all of China. But you didn't actually do that physical work. So you're just kind of, that in and of itself becomes like that slippery slope dynamic of like chasing that high. It's an addiction. It's an absolute addiction. And I think what's fucked up is like we're learning that like when it comes to addiction, it doesn't just stop at substances. It doesn't just stop at alcohol. It could be food. It could be masturbation. It could literally be just complaining. And that stuff is what becomes like, it could literally manifest into a generational curse and ruin an entire family line, make it absolutely dysfunctional. Where dysfunctional people find other dysfunctional people to reproduce with, and they make dysfunctional children, and the world is suddenly populated with more dysfunctional people. And like this is why I think back to what we were saying. Since the last time you were on the podcast, I remember we used to talk about it, how like you would literally like jerk off like something like fucking 8 times a day until like it literally fried you, right?
Well, that was when I was smoking meth.
Okay, yeah.
And I've talked to scores of people that have done meth. I'm like, oh, methization, and they start laughing because they know it's true. At a certain point of using meth, you're still doing things, you're trying to hang out, you're trying to, do other recreational activities. Once you realize that you could just zone into some porn and just use meth and go to the porn, that's where your brain goes every time you use meth from then on. That's why I stopped smoking meth, because I knew I wasn't going to do anything but jerk off in a hotel room for 4 days.
That's terrible. That's absolutely horrible.
Or get a hooker, or whatever the fuck, I'm not PC, sex worker.
Well, I mean, look, I got to stop talking about like semen retention because I talked about it enough on this fucking podcast, and at this rate, it's kind of getting kind of like weird. But like, it's just I bring it up sometimes, especially when addiction comes up. Because it's one of those addictions that we don't know that we're like, We're talking normal people. Normal people who don't smoke crack, who don't smoke meth, who might not even drink, but yet they could have a massive porn addiction that's like fucking them up in so many ways without even knowing they have an addiction. They just think, oh, this is normal. You know, this is absolutely fine. Doctor said it's okay. Like the TV says it's okay. Movies, it's not fucking okay. It's not okay. There's nothing okay about that. Like that's just bad. I mean, masturbation, fine, do that if you really fucking have to. I mean, it's a little childish when you really think about it. But like, yeah, you know, that's whatever. But like, getting hooked to the idea where the only way I could get off when I touch myself is to like pull up my like 10 tabs of porn on Pornhub and fucking like cycle through all of them until I find the perfect scene to like nut to. I was there. I've done that. I know everyone watching has done that. You know, like I know we all know what that's like.
I knew a dude that had a girlfriend. I lived in an apartment with him, and him and his girlfriend would shoot up meth. And when they did that, she would just be in the bed and like trying to do stuff with him. He'd be like, leave me alone, and he'd just pull out his phone and start jerking off the porn. like he wouldn't even want to have sex. He just wanted to jerk off the porn.
Terrible.
Yeah,
Absolutely
like
horrible.
neglecting her. I think he might have been gay though. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
He just had her around or something like that.
Yeah. Well, slightly off topic, but you came back at the right time. I think I'm starting to like get like some revenue in line or like cutting down certain expenses every month, so I could start like, you know, maybe paying like one person to come on like weekly, you know, per episode, $50 for an episode or some shit. I'm sure you could use that, right?
Yeah. Well, I lost my job. I have a new one lined up, but I haven't started it
No,
yet.
if I could actually like give you money to get on like once a week, that would be perfect for me. That would be, first of all, my minimal. I'm already at like now I have extra content. I used to, you know, when we last spoke, like I was having enough content was a problem. Now it's like I have the opposite problem. Like I got too much shit. I just don't have time to post. But the thing is, like, you know, the in-person podcast episodes are like the real meat for me. But like lately I've been getting into a lot of like long distance, like over like, you know, internet conference kind of shit. But yeah, it would be nice to have like a consistent host. And I don't know, if you're interested, man, you know, you should come back on as a regular host. That'd be great.
I'm keen.
But then again, you know, I also look at Terrorisk as the platform, and it's definitely more than just me. You know, like I would definitely be more likely to like hand off the fucking label to someone else. You know, like hand the keys off before I probably shut it down altogether. It's like an institution kind of thing, you know. Maybe become an executive producer, you know, and then like hire a new host myself, like my protege.
Don't you have fun doing it?
What?
Don't you have fun doing it?
What, the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I could always start another podcast, or I could work on, you know, I got a lot of shit that I'm working on. You know, I got the music, I got martial arts on my plate. I also have this new biking thing I've been working on. I'm trying to start a new YouTube channel where it's like POV bike videos, but in just specifically Manhattan riding, like point A to point B style videos. Like, oh, we're going from the South Ferry to Union Square in this video to hit up this record shop. I even have a format, like the beginning of the videos start off with like, you know, shots of the bike, what I'm riding. Then it's going to have the POV footage of the ride, some shots of the destination, could be a restaurant, whatever. It's going to be good. And, you know, original music in the background because I make music, so that should be good. I think that could be good. You know, I think people could find value in that. Because I remember when I was that asshole sitting in the fucking office in front of a computer like for hours out of a day. So yeah, I would watch videos like that, you know, like POV biking vids, because it makes me feel like I'm not sitting in an office and I'm on my bike riding, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a niche for that, and I'm gonna try to get in. I'm gonna try to crack it. I mean, also because I gotta admit, like, once you start creating content, like as a content creator, like what we're doing now, like as a podcaster or posting music videos or whatever, when you start doing that and you live in New York City, you realize like how lucky you are, because when you live in New York City as a content creator, a writer, or a director, whatever, like a filmmaker. When you know, you realize that we live in a city where there's so much raw creative materia, you know, like so much, like let's say you're like,
you say materia, like Final
Materia.
Fantasy 7.
No, I mean in like the alchemic esoteric terminology.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So like, you know, imagine like let's say you're a carpenter, right? Would you rather live in like a desert or a forest?
Forest.
Exactly. So like as a content creator, New York City is like the forest, you know?
Yeah.
Just abundant. It's just abundant inspiration. Like, let's say you're something as simple as a writer. Like I wouldn't if I was actually a committed writer. I mean, I know I'm a decent writer. I'm not a fucking good one probably, but I know I'm a decent writer. Like I probably do have a way with written words, probably because I wrote a lot as a kid for school. But I think when if you're a committed writer living in New York City, you will just never ever run out of shit to write about. There will always be some new shit to write about. You could even have your own gimmick and it doesn't fucking matter. Like, oh, being a bartender in New York City. Oh, no, being a lesbian bartender in New York City. Being a fucking busker in New York City. You know, like whatever the fuck. Like, you know, like you just literally just, as long as you have like that gift of gab, you know, with like written word, then you'll be solid. So anyway, back to your recovery. Do you miss it?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Of course. Fucking alcoholic. I've been doing that since I was fucking 15, you know? It's just like something I can't control. So like, yeah, I'll look back and I'll be like, oh, like, you know, I wish I could go back to drinking the way I drank when I was 21, 22, or 18 or something. But it's not, they say you don't go backwards. It's only forwards. Right? Pick up again. It's going to just be worse than the last time, worse than the last time.
It's true.
And it's a progressive thing. It's just like at a certain point, you know, some people just keep riding that until they die, you know.
So that's why you don't go back to it because you know even if you miss it, like it's not going to be any better when you go back.
The one thing is like they don't. You kind of have to, you know, read kind of, you know, that's what like the 12 steps for like kind of becoming a new version of yourself. Kind of, it's like dying to your old self, and that's a hard fucking thing to do, especially when you have your whole mind made up, your condition. I'm this person, you know. Well, I'm Brendan, the punk band guy. I'm Brendan, the musician. I'm Brendan, the you know, the person who likes to drink and smoke pot.
Your ego.
Yeah, the ego. And it's the whole process of 12 steps is about. It's like a long drawn out shroom trip. It's like a process of killing your ego. So first step is surrender. You know, every take shrooms, you're having a bad trip, you have to surrender to it. You know, you can't, once you eat the shrooms, you're not in control anymore. You have to give up the control in order to get to the part where your ego dies. You have ego death, and you kind of have this new spiritual. And the whole point of the 12 steps is to have a spiritual experience sufficient enough to take away the obsession to drink.
So after you surrender, what suddenly comes after that?
Suddenly, you have the second step would came to believe that
No, I'm not. I'm saying from personal experience. Like after you surrender, it's like I give up. Then what happens after that?
You try to.
No, not saying what happens to you after you say I surrender. Like what does it do to you after you surrender to it?
You just kind of concede to yourself that.
No. I'm saying you surrender to something, right?
Yeah.
So what does that something do to you after you surrender to it? Because it does something to you once you surrender to it. What does it do?
Well, think about okay. If you're watching a movie and it's about
no, I'm not. I know the. I just want to hear it in your words. Just answer the question. Like, what does it do to you?
It makes you give up the idea that you could control it.
And, but
every
how?
person who wants every alcoholic, you know, it's the obsession is that one day you'll be able to just control it. One day you'll be able to just drink, you know, a couple at night. One day you'll be able to drink the way you want to be able to drink without it getting out of control. And that's the obsession of the mind that tells you, you know, that you tell yourself, it's like, okay, just drink less, you know, or just do it a little bit. Go back to how you used to drink. Don't get out of control. I'm gonna go out tonight and I'm just gonna have 4 beers at the bar, do karaoke, and go home. You know, and then you do it again. Then by the time you have that fourth one, you're like, whatever. I'll just have another one.
Look,
and before you know it,
I know what you're describing, but I want to go back to what we'll circle back to this. But what you were saying before about how like that step you have to surrender. All right, you surrender to it. Now, whatever it is, it's something. Call it universe, call it life, call it God, but it's something.
Yes.
And we have to acknowledge that it pretty much exists. Like whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. I mean, you have to like come into this with at least the capacity of a cognitive dissonance to accept the possibility that God is real.
Yes.
Or the probability or the likelihood that yes, God is probably real.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, after you surrender to God or life or the universe, what does it do to you? Does it harm you? Does it punish you? No, it loves you. I think that's the best part is like you think it's like you're terrified of the sensation of surrendering, but whether it's addiction, near death experience, whether it's a fucking like actual death experience where they cross over temporarily, whether it's their life is like so shitty, like they're just like at their wits end and they just break, like they snap after that ego death. that's the pivotal moment where you have to make the decision to surrender. And once you surrender to, like we said before, it, whatever it may be, however you want to define it, you have to surrender to it. It's greater than you. That henceforth you have to surrender to it for external guidance. Once you surrender to it, it's scary because we don't know what it's going to do to us once we surrender to it. What is it going to do once it realizes I'm a bad person, that I did all this bad shit, that I did all this bad shit to myself and people I love, and what is it going to do to me after I?
Is it actually going to help me? Is it actually going
does.
to?
And
is it
every
actually
single
going?
every single time.
Well, I struggle with that
loves you.
because, like, you know, the ego will come and be like, well, you know, well, Jesus surrendered. Look what they did to him. You know, kind of feeling like that. You know,
no. Like, that's not God punishing Jesus for.
Yeah,
Jesus became enlightened enough where it's like it threatened people who literally profited and gained power off of the paradigm of materialism and scarcity. Jesus, like Buddha, became enlightened and discovered Christ consciousness, as they would call it, or as Eastern traditions call it, enlightenment. It's the same shit in my opinion. Yeah, he discovered that. And he figured out like where everything's connected, and he even figured out beyond like in terms of like quantum spirituality, where it's like all points in space and time are connected. Maybe you don't get like the science behind it, but you could feel it intuitively, like emotionally. Like love does transcend gravity, transcends time. It sounds corny, but it's actually true. And it's like when you think about that, it's like what are the things that connect all points in space and time? Well, there's like all the sciencey stuff, like what is it, antimatter or some invisible form of like energy or whatever, but like or some web. But like on a purely human level, you could just say thought. Thought can actually potentially connect all points in space and time, which is true. So that being said, Christ and Buddha kind of like figured this shit out, and then they were like, and this changes things because like, you know, if you don't believe in a soul, if you don't believe in like, if you don't have the capacity to consider metaphysics or a metaphysical existence or like an extra higher dimensional like world or whatever, maybe extra dimensional beings like, you know, gods, little g gods, big G gods, whatever. Once you do kind of like get to that point, you have no choice but to live differently and to start looking at other people differently, because, you know, at first you thought it was just you, everyone's just them, we're all just like these like isolated individuals. But then once you realize like we're actually all heavily connected on a fundamental level, like we're all just the same soul living out different lifetimes in different bodies, you know, like ultimately like that's, you know, that radically alters your perspective and radically alters what people mean to you in your life. And then you realize it's never about like good people and bad people. It's just people who get it and people who don't. You know, like people who don't get it, they're always going to be their worst enemy, and they're always going to be the enemies of people around them. Whereas if you adopt enlightened thinking or enlightened perspectives and Christ consciousness, not to worship Christ, but to be Christ-like, you know, once you fully figure that stuff out, then, you know, that's shit starts working for you. That's when magic happens. Now, like, I think, you know, you start compulsively doing shit like, you know, whether it's masturbation, whether it's drinking, whether it's smoking crack, whether it's pickpocket, like, you know, whether it's like shoplifting, like chronic shoplifting, chronic lying, it's all rooted in this feeling of scarcity, like not having enough of something. It's like this, it's a bottomless pit. And that's really the root of it. That's the root of all evil. That's the root of all selfishness. It's the root of all fear. It's that feeling of scarcity. It's not having enough time, not having enough energy, not having enough something. And once you realize that's all bullshit, that's all a lie, and it's actually malicious on how that lie came about. But once you like fucking get through that, and then you finally realize, like, I don't know if it's the absolute truth, but it's definitely truer than the scarcity bullshit, that the universe is an abundant place, that there is literally plenty for everyone. You know, there is no such thing as scarcity. That's completely fucking made up. I mean, we enforce our own scarcity, you know?
Well, it's also, you know, you think you know what is going to make you happy, and like, so you think if you get enough of this, get enough of that, it's going to make you happy, and then it doesn't, and then you, okay, maybe I just need more of that, you know, and it just doesn't work.
Well, here's my take on happiness. This comes from alchemy. This isn't even like a spiritual thing. This is alchemy is
a
spiritual
concept.
Okay, so like there's this is from Hermeticism, and the way it works is like reality is like imagine like good times and bad times, right? It's like a pendulum. On the right, on this side, you have negative experiences. On this side, you have positive experiences. Good times, bad times. Your experience is like moving along as a pendulum. It's never going to stay in one place. That's the thing that people have to realize. It's never going to be all bad, and it's never going to stay good. The minute you try to freeze it in place is the minute bad things start happening to you. But you have to accept it as is current. The only guarantee is change. The only guarantee is that swinging, back and forth between good times and bad times. Now the thing is, like, once you realize it's a pendulum, that's where you figure out it doesn't just, your place in it doesn't just have to be left and right, but also up and down. As in, this is what prayer and meditation is for. So let's say times are getting bad, that's when you swing up. And let's say times are good, that's when you sink lower into your grosser states and your three-dimensional state, and you enjoy everything that life has to give you, the good times. But then when it swings back to the bad times, you don't escape it, but you tap into your higher self. You can't escape it. You have to always swing that side eventually. But once you do ultimately swing that side, you can move through it with grace. And that's why we pray or meditate or say affirmations or whatever. But yeah, this is all powerful shit because, I mean, even like conventional science is picking up on the idea that our universe is actually a holographic one, not a physical one. And if it's holographic, that means our thoughts can do a lot more to manipulate it than we are conventionally led to believe.
Well, the funny thing about these programs, like after all these 12-step programs start popping up, they don't tell you.
Stole from this shit. They cherry-picked aspects of alchemy, Hermetic spiritual tradition. You could tell it's blatant.
Yeah,
it's amazing to me. I was like, wow, how did I not see this before? But
well, it's funny because they don't tell you. They really don't talk in any of these books or anything. They don't show you how to stop drinking or using drugs. That's not what they tell you to do. They just say, turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand God. So whatever religion you might be, whatever you possibly come up with on your own concept, turn your will and your life. They don't tell you, okay, you're going to stop drinking and try to do... They don't. They're just no, just turn your will over to God. You can't do it yourself. You cannot... The mind that you use to get addicted to whatever you're doing is not the mind you can use to get out of it. So you need to stop trying to give up. You have to stop trying to quit. That's not going to work. So you need to turn it all the fuck over. You need to give up your ego trying to control this thing, you know, and turn it to your higher self, whatever you want to call it,
Well, another thing is, it's like, I mean, the reality of everyone's lives is everyone who could possibly be listening to this. The truth is, actually, no, the reality is like maybe 99.999% of you in the world, like who could possibly listen to this. The truth is, we have very, very, very little control. All of us individually, we have very little control over anything. Like, none of us really have any control over anything. There's very, very few things that we actually have any agency over whatsoever. What I always say, and sometimes this pisses people off, which is very funny. It's actually very interesting, like very like enlightening to me when like people get upset when I say this. But I always say, you can't control what happens to you ever. You can only control how you respond. And a lot of people could take that the wrong way, for like very funny reasons. But like also, it could be very enlightening. It could also teach you something. Like, you can't control anything that has happened to you. So all these like personal vendettas, all these grudges, all these like sense of like, this like chip on your shoulder type shit, that's just baggage. Like, it's never going to be justified. It's never going to be corrected in a satisfied way. That's the type of shit you really have to let go. It's easy to let go when like your life is like so shitty. It's like, oh yeah, I gotta do something about it. But it takes like an extra step when like you're finally stable, but you want more than that. It's like, all right, that's when you got to really start digging for further weaknesses, and you got to dig deeper in yourself, and that's hard. But that's how you level up. Is, funnily enough, to ascend, you got to dig inwards, further inwards.
Well, I guess that's where steps 4 and 5 are. You go through a resentment list, a fears list, and strangely enough, a sexual inventory list.
Yeah, no, you have to. That's because you know what it's doing. Every time you acknowledge those things consciously, you're basically unlocking chakras. Like all those regrets, all those grudges, all those stuff. Each one of those things blocks like your chakra points in different ways. For example, the most basic one, it's like fear, right? Fear is the thing that blocks. Like, what are you most scared of? Because if you're scared, you can't get horny. If you're scared of your well-being, if you're scared of like, your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, and your physical well-being, and your life is at stake, you're gonna have some serious sexual dysfunction in that chakra. However, if you're in a comfortable place in life, your Maslow's hierarchy needs are met, you have shelter, you have food, you have all that shit, then yes, you're gonna start getting horny because like, your body is like saying, okay, you're comfortable enough to be able to be in a reproductive state. After that is your belly, right? Then it's like, it's courage. The courage to go out and explore, I think. Like after that, I don't know the exact mapping, but it kind of makes sense. Like, like intuitively when you like see like how each aspect of your meridian points gets blocked, it's in your meridian network. So it's like, you
think about it like that.
Yeah, but it's like, it's all very important shit and it's all connected. Like, so there's different things that trigger this existential crisis or this like crazy deep end, this dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
That's the thing that where that's like basically your entire, not just your body, not just your mind, not just your heart, but all three aspects reach their breaking point where they said, we've been on this pattern that has not been working for way too long, and now we're going to have to do like the really painful work of getting into like a cocoon, because that fucking hurts, and to be able to like, we're gonna have to dig and do that inner work, and we're gonna be completely immobile. We're not gonna make any progress in life, or we're just gonna feel like complete and utter shit, because it's not a good experience. And you know what? The worst part is, not everyone makes it through it. Some people get like misdiagnosed, like schizophrenia, going through something like this. Some people get like falsely medicated when they're supposed to just eat it. They're supposed to body this. They're supposed to raw dog that pain, but they don't. They medicate and they just drag out the dark. Eventually, the dark night of the soul becomes a dark decade of the soul. Like that's why you got to just raw dog it. You got to straight up face it as if you're facing death. It's a life and death at that point, whether on a short term or a long term. It's literally like looking death in the eye, and it's especially important as a man. Because I don't know what it's like to live as a woman, but I know as a man, if you keep kicking that can down the road of facing your own actual mortality head on, you're gonna fuck your life up. You're gonna poison yourself from the inside. You're stopping a quintessential part of your development as a spiritual being going through a human experience, and just as a human being. Like, these are all very important steps, and you're not going to be able to do the essential spiritual work you were put on this earth to do until you go through that like fucking people call it trials, people call it the gauntlet, people call it trial by fire. I call it just sequence of initiation, just like starting up a rocket ship. You just gotta do the fuel checks. Oh, if something's wrong, run the good maintenance. Like, oh, someone fucked this up, you gotta fix it.
I've known people that completely sober and recovered killed themselves.
Yeah,
they just couldn't go through it. They wanted so bad to go back to their old life, but they knew they couldn't and successfully do it, so they just off themselves instead. They just fuck it. I'm not changing. I'd rather die.
Yep. Because the hardest part is the surrender, right? Like I can't surrender. I can't accept. Like, imagine this scenario. I can't accept a God yet. At this point, ever, maybe, because too much bad shit has happened to me in my life to ever believe a God would be there to do that to me. Like, let's say you're a girl and you've been like sexually assaulted in a war zone, or put through sex trafficking and like brutally treated for
why would God do this to me?
Exactly. So if you go through that kind of trauma, it's going to be retardedly difficult, if at all possible, to be able to like surrender to God after that. But if you're like, it's like pulling down a rubber band. Like, it's easier to like let go of the rubber band when you're like, don't go that far. But when you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper down, the tension's going to get way bigger, and you're going to become like way more scared progressively to let go, because you're going to be like, you sense that potential energy, before it turns into kinetic energy, and you're like, oh, I'm so scared. But then finally they become like born again or whatever, or they accept Christ, or they go through like a Buddhist monastery or some shit, and then suddenly they let go and it shoots all the way up, because like it's the people that ate the most shit and were able to surrender properly to the right thing, and then boom, like they experience rapid ascension, and suddenly overnight, I don't want to be a famous person, I don't want to be a successful guy with money, I just want to help other people who went through suddenly they start living a life of service, like because
it's like it's kind of like you're explaining how the 12-step process works actually. But like
what I'm describing is an ancient mono tradition that has existed across many different empires, many different civilizations throughout all of human history, just repackaged and like decorated and maybe fucked around with a little in different ways. If you, first of all these traditions, like whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islamic, whatever, if you follow their shit, like they're not each one of them isn't specifically like the right thing, but they're all like roadmaps. They're all its own route. Like they're all supposed to take you to the same place.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're at a donkey or a fucking horse up to the summit, you're all looking down at from the same summit once you get there.
And that's the whole point of it. Whether you're doing it through the Bible, whether you're doing it through the Quran, whether you're doing it through the Torah, whether you're doing it through fucking Taoism, whether you're doing it through Buddhism, whatever route you're taking. That's supposed to be that goal.
I did have I didn't think I would have this realization. So the first time I ate shrooms, I was looking for weed, and I I was at a studio, Sand Street Studio, and nobody had weed. And someone came. I don't
Yo,
even.
keep talking. I gotta get ice.
I don't even
Listen.
remember how. Oh, what? Okay. I don't even remember how, but somebody had mushrooms. So I'm like, well, what is it like? Is it like smoking a lot of weed? They're like, kinda. And I had no point of reference, so I ended up buying an eighth of weed instead of an eighth of mushrooms instead of an eighth of weed. And I ended up eating the whole thing. Waited, nothing happened. All of a sudden, I felt like my blood sugar was going low. Ran and grabbed a thing of orange juice, realized my blood sugar wasn't going low. I don't know what the fuck was happening to me. Finally, I found myself in fetal position, and I was a fucking complete atheist. Everything was all government made up fucking religion to control the masses. Which, yeah, and I had no point in the reference.
I mean, that's partially true.
Well, yeah,
There's truth to that.
But there's something else, and I'm like, afterwards, I realized, I'm like, oh my god, they're all the religions are right, but they're also wrong. It felt like they're just trying to get you to surrender. It doesn't even matter to fucking what.
Yeah.
It's a point of surrender that allows the ego to be diminished enough to allow whatever the fuck it is in.
But no, now think of this. Like where people have problems with the religions, like what's interesting is like some religions will say don't fucking drink alcohol, don't have like premarital sex, like which means don't be a fucking slut, don't go hoe around, like wait till marriage till you fuck, like don't consume alcohol, don't basically like don't jerk off, don't do this shit to yourself, fast in certain days, be always like
they're just trying to get you to not get dependent on something outside.
No, those those things energetically also help you because what do they tell like eating too much does fuck up your homeostasis, your mind body soul alignment. What is it? Having too much premarital sex, getting hooked onto all that kind of like externalized pleasure will fuck with your mind. Like being too lazy and not being productive will fuck with your heart and it'll make you lose self-esteem in yourself. It's like, well, I'm just a lazy piece of shit. I'm like, what can I do? How can I save that lady? Look at me. I'm just a nobody. Shit like that. Like all these things, they all have basis in them. I mean, if you take them literally, yeah, it could sound very like critical and shameful and like shaming and all that shit. But like at the end of the day, like they're just pretty much like cautionary tales, I guess you could call them. But if you do follow them to the T, you do get rewarded. You get blessings. Like if you don't jerk off, you get blessings. Like if you don't drink alcohol, you get blessings. If you don't smoke weed, you get blessings. If you don't have premarital sex, you get blessings. Like these are all things that actually do help you in the long run. If you do fast on certain days, you do get blessings. It does help to fast. It is good for your body. I mean, you have to eat, but if you had like 3 to 6 days out of the year where you do fast, that's beautiful. That's a really good reset for your body. Like that's things like that. Like these things are like I said, all the different religions have different like rules. They all have a different like protocol. They all have a different sequence of initiation for the rocket ship. But that's what they all are, sequences of initiation. If you successfully flip every switch correctly and suddenly like press, initiate the throttle.
The funny thing is like, so I also struggle with, my ego wants to go back to its old self. It wants to stay where it was.
But
I'm pretty sure a caterpillar might not really want to go into a fucking cocoon because it doesn't know what the fuck's going to happen to it.
But if you follow this pattern, if you do go into that cocoon and you emerge as a butterfly, not only do you get everything that you've wanted before, but you could also transmute it in a healthier way, in a positive way where it comes to you, not like where you're killing yourself to chase it. That's the point. You go into this cocoon once you're this butterfly. That's a magical existence. That's when you earn sorcery. That's when you earn shamanism. That's when you earn mysticism. That's when you earn mystical powers of reality. Because I mean, to be like Neo, like in the Matrix, to be like that, it's just like a metaphor, kind of a loose metaphor for being perfectly aligned in mind, body, and soul. Let me ask you a question. Okay, so I'm going to premise this with a statement. I'll ask you, do you believe people can willfully make themselves happy or sad using just their thoughts?
Oh, to an extent.
No, let's not say willfully. Let's say, can people make themselves happy and sad using just their thoughts? Maybe not willfully, but can they, using just their thoughts, make themselves happy and sad? Maybe without meaning to. You just do. Like, you ever have a thought and it made you happy, or ever have a thought and made you sad?
Yeah.
Okay, now, what they say is that the most powerful psychics are the people who could do this at will. The most powerful psychics, if I want to feel sad, I know exactly what to think of to make myself sad. If I want to make myself happy, I know exactly what to think of to make myself happy. This is what it means to be a psychic. Now let me ask you something. We know not everyone in the world can do this. If anything, like probably a small minority of people out of 8 billion people could do this. So let me ask you, if all 8 billion people in the world could make themselves happy or sad at will, whenever they want, using just their thoughts, what do you think reality would look like? Like, what do you think the world would look like? I mean, when I was asked this question, I said I think people would still fight, but they would fight on a much higher level, like a much higher meta level. You know, like it wouldn't be like this like barbaric, like animalistic, like fighting wars and killing.
Well, it wouldn't be a selfish fighting.
No, it would be like an ideal. It would be like an ideal.
It would be like, wait, I got a better idea.
It would be magical. You know? It would be magical fighting. It would be literally be using like emotions and intention and will. People would just be. It would literally get to like two people sitting in the same room just staring at each other. You know, having like just this battle. Like it would be crazy. It would be absolutely nuts. Like it would be a crazy, awesome fucking world. But it would also be a dangerous world. It would be a very chaotic world. You know, because imagine it's like you could just dropped a nuke on you. It was just a prank.
See, I battle with the intrusive ones though. You know, I'll be trying to ride home, and I'll be going along the beach, and all of a sudden the flood of memories of me, throughout my life, being able to go to the beach, have a bonfire, or get drunk, do this and that, and I'm like, oh man, I really wish I could do that, and then I'll realize like I haven't been able to do that for many years, and I can't go back to that. This only way to go is fucking forward, and that's away from that shit. But that's where I knew happiness at some point. That's why people like with addiction problems, it's hard because they do have fond memories. When somebody says, "Oh, it was never fun, it was always bad," you're fucking lying. I hear people in meetings sometimes be like, "Yeah, man, it was horrible when I was drinking." I'm like, it must have been good at some point. Because you kept fucking doing it. Somewhere in your neurotransmitters, your brain is thinking, that was a great fucking time. Remember this one time I was there, we were drinking, and I kissed this girl, and I had the beautiful night. And that keeps flooding your memory. But that was 10 fucking years ago. And now it just goes to you drinking fucking a liter of vodka at home, pissing yourself. And that's where it's been the past 10 years. But your brain keeps going back to, what if I can get back to that time, though? And it doesn't. Okay. And the only way to go is forward. Yeah, okay. But you want to go back to that.
So here's another big problem.
Where you feel comfortable.
Here's another big problem that they don't teach us. Like maybe parents or schools didn't know how to teach this to us. But here's a fact, right? When we're all in high school, all right? For all you old ass Gen X fucking retards watching this, right? Fun fact. When we were in high school, like us millennials, we all did the same shit. We were all getting drunk off our asses, right? But here's the thing. What they don't tell you is that, yes, we were all getting fucked up, but a portion of us were getting fucked up, but we also had some kind of like underlying hobby that was kind of like vaguely there and friends knew about, but you didn't. It wasn't really your main thing because the main thing you all shared in common was getting fucked up and trying to have sex and shit. So we didn't really notice each other's like individual unique qualities at that point because as teenagers we didn't give a fuck really. We just cared about, are you down? Yeah, I'm down. So like. But then, like, we couldn't tell, but that a portion of us teenagers were actually working on our things, like whether it was music, whether it was, some stupid hobby like fucking video gaming and whatever. But then, like, fast forward 10 years, after whatever, we were still like, everything kind of like plays out further, like whether it was the drinking or whether it was their little projects in life. So this is what I'm saying. It's like, we want to like act like we're so confused about why a big portion of us turned into like addicted fucking fail sons, like failure to launch, like Arrested Development type shit. It's the truth is like the modern world wasn't equipped to properly challenge young, like smart minds. It wasn't like there wasn't any. First of all, there was no ethical way to do this. There's no ethical way to like stress children, to provide enough stress but not too much to break them, right? Can you think of one? Because I fucking personally can't. Like that doesn't borderline on abusive treatment of a child. But then like maybe that's the problem. Like maybe the problem is with the fucking paradigm, right? Like maybe the problem is we are too soft. But then it's like at what point it's like how not soft is enough not soft, it's like
I feel like life itself has a way of breaking you. And it's either
No, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's like life has a habit of breaking you when it's too late to do anything about it. That's the problem. Like, what if we could get it to break you a little? Because we do see examples of that, right? Where life just, certain people, it's like they got broken at just the right time. Like, and some people got broken at the worst possible time. Some people get broken when they're like kids. and then that like hardens them just enough to be able to like be bitter and competent and like logical and rational and survivalist enough to be able to actually thrive in like what's becoming an increasingly chaotic world. Whereas you have people who are treated with like, you know, love, care, individual community, just collective community, and just positive encouragement and affirmative, I guess just affirmative treatment. You know, it's like, yes, I affirm your belief in yourself. You know, like if you grew up that way and then suddenly when you reach like 36 and you think you're at like the top of your game, you got a nice fat 401k, a career you could rely on, wife, kids, parents that love you, that's still, you know, still around, still like kicking. But then like within a year, suddenly like you lose your job, your parent, like one of your parents gets sick, you can't afford the bills, no one can, you know, grandma's not working, the wife's not working, you were taking care of everyone, suddenly like the family falls apart and suddenly you're fighting with your wife more often, the kids notice and suddenly they're getting fucked up from watching you like yell at mommy and getting drunk, and suddenly mommy wants a divorce and suddenly both your parents are dead, and now you're a guy, you got shit canned from your job, your wife divorced you with the kids, and fucking your parents are dead. Now this might sound like an oddly specific scenario, but trust me, it's fucking not. It's not. This is a very, 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 very common scenario, especially for men in America. And I mean, I would hope that any like rational-minded American citizen knows this. You know, you agree with me, right? What I just said, right?
Yeah,
You see it
I've
all
met
the
plenty of people. Yeah,
yeah, you see it all the fucking time. And the sad part is like, it's not even like these people could sink themselves into work anymore and just make themselves more useful because, you know, as far as like the labor economy, everything's getting automated, everything's getting like replaced. You know, like your jobs, a lot of your jobs are getting more streamlined. The problem is specialization. Like, let's say you spent your whole life specializing as like an accountant or specializing as a tax preparer or a counselor or something, and suddenly AI is just doing all like, or a coder, you know, like, and AI is just doing it all for you, or like a blogger. It's crazy. It's fucked up.
well, they don't really, you know, train us. They can't teach people as much how important it is to try to be of service to others. We're a very self-serving society. You know, it's like do your job, get your money, so you can do what you want to do.
Okay, before you hold that thought,
it's about thinking about yourself a lot of the time.
I want you to keep going, but I just want to say one thing. It's a cool little tip. I'm all about, when it comes to using your energy, 51% service to others, 49% service to self. Anyway, continue.
Well, I guess you can't, you know, it's kind of like putting the mask on when you're in an airplane. You got to put it on yourself before you can put it on the fucking kid, because you'll be losing oxygen. You won't be able to take care of anyone else. So you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others. But you know, and a lot of religions say we gain that by serving others. So by serving others, it actually does serve yourself. And it's also a way of diminishing the ego, because I'll be in self-pity all day thinking what I want. But as soon as I'm able to turn my attention to somebody else who might be worse off or might need help, all of a sudden I realize I haven't been thinking about myself. And that problem's just kind of gone for a while, because I'm not worried about, oh, I didn't get this, I want a girlfriend, I wish I could drink. And then I'm talking to this fucking person and helping this person that wasn't even a fucking problem. That was just my head jumping in with intrusive thoughts telling me, you need this, you need that, you need this to be happy. And by saying, I was listening to Ram Dass last night, you know, by using something to gain happiness, you're telling yourself that you're not enough the way you are. So, those thoughts of self-pity and shit like that, a lot of it comes from thinking, I don't have enough to be happy right now. And just that thought itself makes you less happy.
Yeah.
By thinking I need this to be happy, when if you can just get rid of those thoughts, you'd just be fine the way you were.
So I gotta ask you, you believe in a soul, right?
Yeah.
All right. So do you believe in like a source for the soul that comes into our body and returns to after the body dies?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could call that like the big the mega soul,
oversoul,
the oversoul, the
collective consciousness,
God.
Yeah,
I like God. God's
an easy fucking word
but
to
source
use.
is good too.
I used to not like that word. I'm like, God, because it sounds like, to a lot of people, God sounds like some guy in the fucking sky that is like a entity that makes rules.
No. I look at it as like
things,
a big, like a massive, incomprehensibly large ball of like light. You know, like just pure light. You know, or it's like the life stream, or fucking the universe or life. I mean, when I said I'm going to, like, what sparked my spiritual awakening was when I was writing in a book. I was like, I'm going to trust life, and like for some reason those words like created this like domino effect in my mind and like throughout my body, and I was like, holy shit. Because like then I just like started, like, I was just cooking dinner and I was like, I'm gonna trust life. And I realized I never said that before. Like, I never said in my head or out loud, like, I'm going to trust life. I never said that. And once like I fully considered it and internalized it in all aspects of being, I was like, holy shit. And it just changed everything. It absolutely changed everything. I was like, this is fucking crazy. You know, like, because then I started questioning. I was like, wait a minute. What am I trusting life with? I die and then what? Like, oh yes, there's a soul. And then suddenly it's like it all and then I started referencing things that I didn't even know I looked at before, like hermetic books that I had, or like, you know, all this like vaguely spiritual traditional shit, you know, that I kind of like brushed up on but didn't immerse myself in, but it was like lurking in my subconscious. It was like there was like a seed planted up until that pivotal moment on a random day in my fucking kitchen when I finally asked the right question to myself. I'm gonna try, or tell myself I'm gonna trust life, you know, like I'm going to live every day assuming life actually has my back, is not out to get me. And then like I was like, wait a minute. And then eventually that like it led to that contemplation. It's like, I am life. I am the universe. I'm like a point, a single point. Like I'm like a focused point, like, you know, taking sunlight to a magnifying glass. I'm a focused point of the universe becoming aware of itself. You know, it's like, or here's how I'll put it. Like, can you like imagine people in your mind and make them have conversations with each other?
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we are to God.
Yeah, but we also had like free will.
Yeah, we could give our imaginary people free will.
Not without controlling them. I feel like if I'm creating conversations in my head, I am trying to control the conversations. In my
Not
head.
necessarily. You just let whatever said. You know, because no matter what you make them say, it's still correct. Because there's just because you created them doesn't mean they're not real in your mental world. Let them say whatever Brendan says. Whatever Brendan wants them to say is what they say. Maybe that's what God is to. Maybe that's what we are to God. Maybe we are God's like mental projections, and we're just having conversations with each other, existing in God's mind. Pretty crazy, right?
I enjoyed the pause for a second. I wanted the short pause of silence. You know, when a lot of spiritual teachers talk, they say something,
Oh my god!
and then they do. But like, there's something. There must be something to that.
All right, so this is where we segue into talking about spiritual YouTubers. One of my favorite fucking topics to talk about with friends. I got some shout outs. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to my favorite. There's The Alchemist. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Her first name is Sarah. Her last name is Al-Kaidi or something. Al-Kaidi. She's like really sick. She's trained, I think, under Rosicrucian tradition or something, which has its ties back to her. I am by no means an expert on any of this like esoteric shit, but I know like I got kind of like a vaguely decent like map of like as far as like the alchemic traditions, you know, like Hermeticism, Rosicrucianism, Gnosticism. But then, you know, like as a East Asian person, like I do think it's like there was like this kind of like subtext of like Eastern tradition throughout my upbringing, because there has to be. It's always going to be there. You know, I'm an Asian. Like you're going to see that. You're going to be exposed to some Buddhist shit, which has its roots to like Indian shit.
I prefer Eastern philosophy more than like more Westernized.
Well, all right.
religion.
Philosophy is different from like mysticism and esoteric.
That's crazy because I was in, you know, there was a bookstore in the spiritual. They had the spiritual section.
Actually,
and it was
you know what? That's
right next to the.
I want to correct myself.
But
I want to correct myself. I want to say that spirituality is philosophical, or philosophy is spiritual, or spirituality is highly philosophical.
Well, in Texas, there was a bookstore, and there was two shelves I would go to. One was spirituality, and one said Eastern philosophy. But I would go into the Eastern philosophy, and it was like the Bhagavad Gita. I'm like, okay, we're in America, so they're calling this spiritual and this philosophy, even though they're both spiritual fucking books, whether it's the fucking Bible on this side or the fucking Bhagavad Gita or something on this side. It's still spiritual, but they decided to call the one Eastern philosophy because I guess they don't want to count that as spirituality.
I mean, here's the thing. In a lot of ways, I do think Western canon is superior, but in some ways, I do think Eastern philosophy is also superior. I look at it like this: Western philosophy is sane people examining the written works of crazy people, and Eastern philosophy is crazy people examining the works of sane people.
How? How so?
Well, all right. So I assume, like, going back in the days, like around like the 20th century or whatever, maybe 19th century, you had like your average peasant, your average fucking rube, your average idiot, like dirty, fucking muddy, shitty, drunk, whatever, like, like kind of whatever, farting, burping. And then you come across like enlightened works. And these enlightened works in such an industrialized, materialist framework, like kind of like gray, dense world is going to be like coming from a madman, someone like Nietzsche, or Carl Jung, or fucking Schopenhauer, like Voltaire. These guys were fucking crazy. Like these guys weren't, they weren't like your working man people. They were kind of like your fucking, they were almost like your what's the word? Like upper middle class kind of elites. Not elites, they weren't elites, but I'm just saying, they were educated. They were like almost like the intelligentsia, I guess you could call it. I don't know. I don't fucking know. I'm not an expert on this shit, but I do know that those guys had the privilege to go a little crazy, because that's what you do in the West. When you have a little privilege, you go a little crazy. When you're poor, you have to be sane, you have to be realistic, you have to be logical, you have to work, you have to make money, you have to provide security for your poor family. But when you have a little bit of something, that's when you start going a little crazy. That's so you do a little bit of drugs, you start making a little art. Ideally, you start writing, you make some whatever. Okay, so there's that. That's how the sane working man comes into contact with the works of a crazy man, where he realizes the written works of this crazy man is speaking a lot of fucking truth to him. It's enlightening, right? Okay, now let's go to Eastern philosophy. Eastern philosophy is everyone's crazy because everyone's like on Asian mode, Asian Indo, like what? Everyone's on like hyper Eastern Indo, what is it? Indo-Anglo, whatever, Indo-Saxon, whatever. I don't know.
Anglo-Saxon?
No, Indo-European people, but moved all the way to the east, and now you have this like East Asian population, and they had dynasties, they had all this shit, and like most people were fucking crazy. Like honestly, as an Asian person, I'll say like the way, I don't know, maybe it's an ethnic thing, but like Asian people are like insects with really high IQ. Like they will obsess over like the smallest, littlest shit, even as a peasant, which is kind of insane, right? But then like they come across the works of like Buddha, right? Or fucking Zen monks, like Zen masters and shit, who've reached enlightenment through contemplation, meditation, just sitting still, not farming, not struggling, not trying to take over empires and dynasties and all that shit, just sitting on top of a mountain. Ignoring everything else and just sitting there. And that's probably what they realized was the most fucking sane thing you can do.
Well, it's also like you take a culture that's so insistent on doing stuff and getting stuff done, and then this guy comes out and it's like, no,
do nothing.
And they're just like that. It's like common sense is uncommon sense at that point.
Yeah.
It's like completely opposite to what instinct tells you to do. That driven kind of, I need to get stuff done. And you think I'm going to use my intelligence to try to understand things, and they're like, no, you can't get to it you can't think your way into this. You have to stop thinking to get into this.
Yeah. So this we could also move on. I mean, all right. So back to spiritual YouTubers. Fucking shout out to Ralph Smart. Super fucking annoying, but I have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, he was definitely an essential part in the beginning, part of my process. Definitely felt a lot less crazy in the early stages of a spiritual awakening. So shout out to Ralph Smart for being like a good like soft launch pad, soft launch for your own like development. Like after a while though, it just gets too much. The Alchemist is my favorite. Then there's also I also have tarot readers on YouTube. I don't want to disclose my tarot readers, because then everybody else will start looking up those specific tarot readers, and then you're gonna start distorting my energetic relationship with those tarot readers, because like they're creepy accurate.
You know how to read tarot?
What?
You know how to read tarot?
Oh, I'm studying now. I have books on it. I have a cool tarot deck. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I never liked tarot. I always got them, but I never liked it because it always tell me something that my ego did not want to fucking hear.
No. So here's I have a really fun take on tarot, astrology, and numerology. Now the thing we both just agreed, like, the universe is mental. The universe, reality, is holographic. It's more mental than physical. If we know that, then what I say is the thing about tarot, astrology, and numerology is these things tap into the collective subconscious. And that's significant in a world that's literally made of consciousness. You know, in a world where everything is creation, the fact that astrology, tarot, and numerology and things like that can tap into the collective subconscious just by seeing it. It basically, if reality is made up of nothing but patterns, tarot reflects patterns back to you. Numerology reflects patterns back to you. Astrology reflects patterns back to you. And this is why they seem to resonate so heavily with an objective reality. But the truth is, reality was never objective. Reality was always downstream from consciousness.
So how would you describe how tarot works then?
Okay, so there's an argument to be made, like, oh, because I got this tower reading, did I really make the decision that I wanted to make or that I would have made if I never got that reading? Or because I got that reading and because that idea was planted in my head, suddenly now I acted and made the decision I did, knowing that regardless of whether or not I know, like, I agreed with the actual tarot path, like, who knows, just like maybe my path was set just from being exposed to that. That's looking at it. I mean, that's the easiest, like that's one of the things you do when something bad happens to you because you don't listen to a tarot reading or something, or you think that's not going to happen, but it actually does happen. And you're like, what the fuck? And then you start rationalizing, like, oh, maybe it's because it put the idea in my head and I started acting subconsciously in a way that manifested this. What does that fucking tell you? What that tells you is that it's all mental, that you should listen to, you know, signs and what your conscious reaction to it, your response to it is. Like how you're, like, regardless of what the cards tell you is irrelevant. The fact is how you responded to it, how you felt about it, you know, how it triggered your emotions. Like, whereas the tower says, like, if you get a tower card and you're like, oh, something is about to collapse in your life, something big, something major is about to fall so that something else may take its place, how are you going to feel about that? You, like, are you the type of person that gets freaked out and say, oh no, my precious things, my precious towers, one of my precious towers is going to fall? That tower is my everything. Or are you one of those people that's like, yeah, that sounds about right. You know, it's like, this has been going on long enough. It's about time for me to move on to the next thing. You know, that shows how advanced you are when it comes to this shit. It really is like that's why it has to be approached with a sort of like spiritual level. You know, like there is a leveling system to this. You know, because like you've seen people go crazy over this shit. You've seen people who try to like tap into spirituality and they become schizos. You know, they become like crazy. They become like conspiracy nuts. This is serious shit. Like, we can't just treat this like, oh yeah, you know, this is just something I like dabble in. No, this could fuck up your life. Like, this could literally ruin your reputation, your family, your relationships, everything. You know, suddenly everyone in your life thinks you're fucking weird. You know. This is why it's done in secret. This is why it's a cult. You know, because there's pitchfork type people. Like,
you see, I've always been into theology and all these things, and
yeah, but that's different from esotericism and occult, you know, studies.
Well, yeah, well, right now, you know, the spiritual path I'm on is it's like spiritual kindergarten, kind of. You know, it's more of a program of action. Take certain actions. You know, it doesn't give a lot of wiggle room to sit around and think about shit. It's more like, no, you just do this, and it'll come to you.
Maybe it's like maybe you were just like, for example, like in the framework of reincarnation, like maybe you were like high enough level in the spirit where it's like, all right, it's time for you to get the harder assignments. Whereas for me, it's like it was finally like, all right, you know, you're gonna incarnate into this body with a little more original spiritual insight. Whereas it's like you're gonna get incarnated with like way less at first, you know, like.
Well, it kind of forces you into a spirit. Like, you could sit there and think, oh, that's a nice concept. I like that idea. Oh, stay in the present moment. I like that idea. But then you don't do it. For me, you know, it's like, oh, this shit's gonna kill you if you don't figure this out or find a way to do it now.
Yeah. It's
it's
the most important game in the world. It's more
It's like, oh
important.
yeah, you want to get spiritual? Well, if you don't, you'll die.
Yeah,
now it forces you into it. Like
Spirituality is more important than money. It's more important than intellectualism. It's more important than social influence. It's the biggest. It's the most fundamental game. No successful person, like majorly successful or stay successful for that long, for that matter, unless they have a strong spiritual basis. Like we don't want to think like we want to think all these like billionaires and stuff are like completely normal, materialist, secular. No, they believe in some weird fucking spiritual shit. They all practice mudras. They all fucking like they're involved with spiritual communities. Like most of them, if not all of them, I think. Because you can't achieve self-mastery without some kind of metaphysical framework for your experience in life, You can't just live this whole life thinking you're just your mind and your body. That's hell. That's pure like duality hell. You need that third balancing thing to create a true triforce. This the triangle, the most stable shape of all shapes, So you need mind, body, and soul trinity. You can't just be mind and body, which is what we're conditioned to be in contemporary society, but it's wrong.
It's actually the symbol of AA. It's a triangle in a circle.
Dude, triangle is the most important thing ever. It's all about the triangle, mind, body, soul connection.
Except those NA fucks, they use a diamond. They're super extra.
What?
Those NA people. They use NA uses a diamond.
Okay, no.
For their thingy.
So you want to hear something interesting? All right, so let's talk about symbols.
Okay.
Now, imagine symbols as a living thing, as an organism. Think about it. Like symbols that actually are alive and that could be more powerful than us. Right? Like think about a cross.
Like they have their own consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about a cross?
Well, it's iconic. It's a pretty important symbol throughout all just our with the depths of our consciousness. The cross. We need the cross is like the basis for so many things and everything. From the things we build, from the things we conceptualize, from the things we quantify on a graph. We need crosses. Now, without getting going off the deep end with sacred geometry. Funny thing about the cross, pyramid, it's a four-sided triangular thing, like there's four triangles, right? That's how a pyramid shaped. So it's like you got triangles, right? Because triangles are awesome. I mean, we already know they're the most stable shape and they're most representative of some of the most divine patterns within reality, in the universe and life. You look at a pyramid, which is four triangles, but if you look at it from a bird's eye view, what do you get?
I guess a diamond, yeah.
You get a cross.
Well, I guess depending on which way you're... Yeah. A cross is kind of a diamond.
What?
A diamond's kind of a cross.
No. I mean, look, you got the pyramid, right?
It has the 4 points and then 2 smaller points sticking out the side.
No. I mean, just from purely vertical bird's eye view, top down. You get a cross.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to bend over and look at it. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, so it's that. So now when you look at a cross, you could realize there's more dimensions to it. It's just hidden. If you took that cross and you flipped it along the I guess the horizontal axis or the vertical axis, I'm not sure. You flipped it along some axis, and then you could turn a simple cross into a pyramid. And then if you lift the pyramid out of the ground, then it could become like a diamond. If it's reflected as above, so below. But yeah, crazy things about geometry and symbols. Symbols are definitely alive. Numbers are symbols, which means numbers are alive. Letters are symbols, which means letters are alive. I mean, they live longer than any person, don't they?
Yeah.
Crazy shit, right?
Yeah, I never got into sacred geometry.
Yeah, but now we're just talking about as a concept symbols. Symbols are alive. They are alive. So you should be more careful, before you decide to get a Buddha tattoo on your lower back, or to get a Buddha design on your cushion where you put your ass. If that was a real, if that was a living, breathing symbol, treating it like a real symbol, would you really want it there? You know, like
Yeah, no, yeah, I see. Yeah, I haven't gotten the tattoo in a really long time. But I don't know, I had a friend who said, if every one of my tattoos meant something, I'd be fucking insane. And I'm like thinking about that now. I'm like, yeah, because a lot of people just get like, I just want this little thing on me, and it's not, just for fun. It's like a hobby, but like, a lot of people get, oh, this one means this for me, this one means this for me, but that's kind of crazy to get all those different things that mean something to you. And what if you change and it doesn't mean anything to you? And then I guess you can say, oh, that was a time in my life. But like, I know a bunch of people that have tattooed, in our circle, like that have DTD, drunk till death. Like, what if that changes and you have that tattoo to you?
that's a pretty stupid tattoo.
Yeah, like I've known people with recovery tattoos, and I'm like,
That's pretty powerful.
yo, if you relapse, you're gonna kill yourself now because you're gonna sit there and be like, with the fucking recovery, you're gonna want to slice it the fuck off. Like I would have hung on, oh man, that's a little bit rough to have that,
If I got a tattoo, you know what I'd want? I'd want to get a triangle right here. So it's like every time like I'm like feeling whatever, I look at that. It's like if I just see the shape, it automatically makes me think mind, body, and soul. And if I think mind, body, and soul, I'm automatically think, all right, am I aligned in mind, body, and soul? And if I'm not aligned in mind, body, and soul, then I immediately start trying to fix like what's making me out of alignment, which automatically it's a good tool. It's a good tool to have. Maybe on the other arm I'd have a perfect circle, and then I realize like, okay, that circle is an illusion. We all think our minds are more comfortable in terms of like a recursive loop, but the truth is it's not a circle. If you look at it at a different dimension, it's actually a spiral. Whether it's going up or down, it depends on you. But the truth is, no one's going in a perfect circle. We just like to think we're going in a perfect loop because our minds are more comfortable with that. Our minds are not comfortable with the idea of a broken circle that keeps continuing in a spiral, maybe both ways, and we're just like
doesn't fucking end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's like, things like that. So a circle to remind me of a spiral and a triangle to remind me of mind, body, soul connection. Like I think that's the whole point of like runes and like that's how symbols were really used as magically. It's like douche, 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 and then it creates that thing in your mind, and then it's like douche, whatever. Like I don't know, like it's like these are mental tools, but it helps you it corrects a lot of things disrupting your inner homeostasis. Pretty cool shit, right? Pretty deep stuff, right? I don't know why I pick up on this so well. Like this is the creepiest part to me. This is kind of what makes me believe in reincarnation. I mean, I have no proof of this, but I have this like deep feeling like maybe I did do this a lot. Maybe I did do this like living thing many times. And like I do like there's this idea that once you die and reincarnate, the only thing that you take into your next life is like your spiritual XP. Like imagine like, you beat a game and then you start new game plus, and the only thing you get from your old game is your mono level or like your spirit spells or whatever.
You still have to pick up the items and everything.
Yeah. But every time you die, you just carry over that one attribute, which happens to be your spiritual development. So as soon as you unlock shit, it's like, oh shit, I like once you learn your first spell, I could use it like I could spam it like level 2 like mad times or whatever.
Well, Ram Dass talks about that too. He's like, like he had one woman who was this old Jewish woman, and like she like it was just a big like she like would curse a lot and smoke, and then he taught her how to meditate, and then like immediately she started going into these like crazy trance states, like things that would take like
past life regression.
Yeah, like things that would take people like 30 fucking years of meditating with. And she's like going into complete trance and shit, and like seeing like the future and shit like that. And it's like, oh, she must have been doing this for like many lifetimes, and she just tapped into it again in this lifetime, and it just immediately came back.
Well, another thing about like past lives is that they don't have to be linear. They don't have to take place in chronological order.
Yeah,
like your past lifetime could have been like 3,000 years in the future. Your past lifetime could have been in like 2036. Your past lifetime could have ended in like 1991. Like your past lifetime could have ended.
Yeah, time is non-existent when it comes to that.
Yep. That was like that was one of the most enlightening aspects of like the reincarnation theory, when it's like I realized it doesn't have to be linear, because like there was always that common belief. It's like, oh, what if in a past life I was something no, it's like it doesn't have to be that. In a past life you could easily have been like an alien from like galaxies away, but 3,000 years in the future. You know, there's a very interesting theory also because when it comes to spirituality, it's funny. Like, I don't know if this is a normal thing, but for me, when I contemplate like spiritual things, I always like land on aliens like really quickly. Like, don't you?
I used to. I kind of gave. I don't know. I kind of stopped thinking about that sort because it was like something that didn't really change anything or help me. Like, there's a lot of things I used to have, like, oh, that's an interesting concept to me, and I like thinking about it. But over time, like, it didn't like. Even if it was the truth, how does that help me now in this life? You know.
But that's how you're thinking, like selfishly. You know, it's like don't you see how significant like contact with an intelligent being is?
I guess so, but I think like we need to focus on this mode. That's why we're here in this one. You know, like if I think about all these past lives and things like that, that's not really going to serve the one thing I have to do right
Well,
now.
that's fair enough. But like, so for me, it was cool because I was like, I apply it. You know, like in I guess like martial arts training and like this fucking podcast project. You know, and like all this shit. You know, what I really needed, what I was really like cultivating was a large energy pool. You know, because like I didn't realize that's what I had. Like in terms of it's not just like intelligence. You also need like a big portion of willpower, and that's the X factor. That's what science doesn't really know how to like cultivate. That's what schools don't teach you how to cultivate. That's what our parents don't teach you how to cultivate. Spirituality, though, like spiritual traditions, have long since concerned itself with cultivating willpower, chi, right? Which is very important shit. Like, we need chi to actualize our will. We need chi to get up and write a song when no one's fucking paying us a paycheck to do it. We need chi to make us get up and start a fucking podcast when we don't even know if anyone would fucking listen to it. We need chi to get up and like make a painting when we don't even know if anyone's gonna like it or if I'm gonna fucking like it as its creator. We need chi to be able to get up and go to fucking martial arts practice when no one is telling you to, and it's actually costing you money to go. We need chi to do all of that. You know, we need chi to learn how to drive. We need chi to get a job. Like, these are things that like our will. This is why it pays to have a larger and larger inner capacity of chi. Some people have like a little bit of chi flowing through them, you know, and so they can only do a little bit of certain amount of things throughout the day, and then before they crash and they go to sleep and they start their loop over.
You know, I've been like that lately. I've been like it's like spiritually bankrupt.
This is why you got to stop. Well, not you specifically. This is why people have to stop doing things like jerking off. Jerking off, especially as a man, depletes not just your semen, it depletes your fucking chi. It really, really, really does, man. I'm telling you. It sounds silly, like it like, oh, it's draining your mana, but it's fucking true.
What if you like jizz in your sleep though? Like have a wet dream.
That's fine because that's not like devoting your chi. Chi is
you're not putting any energy into it.
You're not
it's
putting
just
will
happening.
into it. Yeah, exactly. It's the conscious act of you know. It's like it's that. It's you're depleting your chi. You're wasting that manifestation energy. You know, you can't do that. It's no good because first of all, it's your most powerful. It's your most like, you know, it's your most potent. Like
Your face is your root.
yeah,
You know,
it's your MP. It's your fucking.
you're draining your mana.
That's what you need for spells in reality.
Cast any spells.
To manipulate
It's
reality.
like casting fireball at the wall
It's
over
like-
and over again, and then you go out into the world and you're like fireball. Oh shit!
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it's like.
Gotta start playing Morrowind again.
Well, or just guys, it's okay to jerk off. I don't know the rules about that. Do it. But I just think porn is bad. Definitely, because it's not just the fact that you're giving up your chi.
Yeah, but when you're thinking about when you're thinking about things to get yourself horny, that's still kind of porn. It's just porn you're making up in your head.
No. The problem is
fantasize about shit.
That's better because at least you're training the power of your manifestation and reality creation. Whereas if you're locked into a porn video, that's an external source hijacking your chi. That's how people make money. That is the key to making money. It's nothing to do with smart financing and investing and all that shit. No. To make money is you have to learn how to divert the most precious human resource, which is attention, chi, to divert that chi into revenue that goes into your pocket. Whatever method in between, that's up to whatever. That's up to the universe. That's up to your strategizing and tactics, whatever. But the baseline dynamic is diverting humanity's chi into revenue for your pockets. Like, if I could make the right commercials that could make people feel like very insecure if they don't buy my product. It's like, what? If I don't buy Chris's course on making $12 million within the year, I'm gonna become bankrupt in the coming economic collapse. Oh no, I gotta pay $5,000 for his course. You know, like that's disrupting your chi flow, hijacking it, and diverting it. Like it's basically like unplugging the chi hose and then replugging it into my thing, and then doing that to millions of people, you know, and they don't even notice it because you know your whole body is made up of multiple hoses, and I just plucked one.
They do that a lot.
But then here's the thing.
Facebook.
But then I do that. I just take one, and then another person comes and says, "Oh, he won't notice if I take one too." And then another person comes and takes one, and then your favorite liquor bottle company comes and takes another one, and then your favorite fast food company takes one. Before you know it, you're like all hooked up to like external networks, which may not even be evil, all of them. But the fact is, you're already so compromised and so bloated, like, you know, too many apps on the phone kind of thing. Like you're already hooked out, and so much of your chi is being diverted out. And that's how you get fucked up, man. Like, so porn is a big one. Porn is like taking a massive artery, like and plugging it in, you know, like.
Huh.
So yeah, stop with the porn, guys. It's not good. It's bad for your chi.
Just think about the person you passed on the street when you go home.
No, you just make up your dream girl in your mind. Like, treat her like she is. First of all, not even him or her, whoever that person is truly going to be the most special person in. I mean, actually, no, that's dangerous. I don't recommend this. Actually, I take it back. Forget what I just said, because I could see how this could become a really, really, really bad delusion. Just know that, like, I don't know. Just conserve your mana, man. Conserve your chi. Don't waste it on a little nutty nut. Like, wait until you find a beautiful girl who wants to fuck you, then you fuck her, and that's it.
Yeah, just wait.
You could do other things. You could like exercise. You could do karate. You could fucking ride a bike. You could get stronger. You could go on keto. Like, that's what I've been doing. You know, shit. Make music.
Yeah, I've been tired lately. I've been lazy. Just kind of blah.
Oh yeah.
But I haven't been doing that much. I don't know. I guess I'm so used to relying on booze and shit like that. I'm just like, don't even know how to do things anymore, you know? Or I don't have drive to do things. Like, you know, I went to go to the beach and try to just, like, go play music and try to make an extra couple bucks, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm so used to having what I used to call music juice to do it. So I'd go up there, have a couple beers, a couple shots, and then I'd start doing it. And now I just... Well,
it's not like you have to really do anything now, right? It's not like there's anything you're obligated to do at this point, right? You don't have to do anything extra right now, do you? Like, is there anything in your life that you feel you're like scarce on, like you're actually lacking? Other than like obvious shit, like, I don't know, money. Like, we all need more money, but like otherwise, like, do you really feel like you don't have enough friends? Do you feel like you don't? I mean, yeah, every guy wants a
pretty
girlfriend.
much. I wake up, I try to make a meeting every day, you know, and I just kind of, I wake up and I pray. I try to turn over my will as well as I can, and I just try to go about my day and just like see where it takes me. And like, you know, I have a sponsor, just somebody who helps you out with this stuff. And like, I talk to him, and he's just like going, you know, I'm like, meetings don't help me, and he's like, well, you go for the probability effect. You have a higher probability of hearing something or meeting somebody if you go to these things. It doesn't mean every time it's going to be this great experience, but you have a higher probability than if you're sitting in your fucking room all day. And I'm like, yeah, right. You know, and I used to do things like that. Like I used to just go and leave my house when I was younger and just go walk along the boardwalk up and down. But my idea was like, if I leave and I walk up the boardwalk, I might run into like a girl of my dreams. It never fucking happened. But my expectations, like if I just do this, I might end up, you know, I'm not going to run into anyone while I'm sitting at home. Kind of deal. It increases the probability. If I'm just sitting on my bed, not much is going to happen unless somebody reaches out and calls me or something, you know. The probability is higher if I leave the house and go out there and put myself out there.
What would you say is like, for a person in recovery, like what would you say is the number one thing that usually makes a person like fall off the wagon?
Discontentment.
Yeah, like lack of abundance.
Well, they say in the book, resentment is the number one offender. It kills more alcoholics than anything, and fear. And so
like grudges, personal vendettas.
See, I don't have as much grudges against people as more of like concepts. Like I have the grudge against
Society.
Not even society anymore. It's more of an idea, like a concept. I'm grudging at the world that it didn't give me what I thought I wanted, or like just life itself. It's hard to. I can't even point a finger at any specific thing. For me, it's more like, why didn't my life go the way I wanted it to? The times I really tried. But then they tell you in the book, you got to recognize these fears. Why do we have them? Is it because self-sufficiency failed us? Honestly, yes, because I had the band when I was younger. I had the girl. I had whatever thought I had that I lost, right? That I thought I lost. Because my own self-sufficiency, me trying to control the members of my band, control the relationship, or try to hold on to it, and I lost it no matter how hard I tried to hold on to it. Kind of, yeah, self-sufficiency failed. But then that's when you kind of try to trust that there is a higher power out there that is trying to remove things so it can bring you to something else. And as long as you keep trying to grasp for things that's not supposed to come to you, you're not going to get those other things. You got to kind of release all the, well, I want this, I want that. You kind of got to give that up and really kind of have almost a blind faith that there is something that you can't even think of now that's supposed to come to you that's better than all that, and you can't even conceptualize it at this point because you're so in your head about what you think you want, what you think you need to be happy. So right now I'm at a point of kind of surrender. I have no choice but to be surrendered because I've tried to be happy in this world on my own, and it caused me to just try to control my emotions by drinking, using so many different drugs and stuff, trying to control the way I feel about things, because that was the least amount that, when all else failed, that was the only thing I thought I was able to use to control the way I felt. I might not be able to control that this person didn't act the way I wanted. I might not have been able to control if I got a band or not, because that relies on people, places, and things, but I can at least control how I feel about it at this very moment, and then that turned on me too, and I'm left there with like, fuck, I can't make happiness happen on my own. I can't force this. I can't use, self-propulsion to actually grasp onto this life and fucking pull it towards me. It's like it slips. It's like trying to grab onto a chunk of water. It just slips through your fucking fingers, Yeah. And at that point, you're not surrendering because you're choosing to trust God. You're doing it because I have no fucking choice now, And I think a lot of people in different ways come to that situation where it's like nothing is working. What other choice do I have?
Is there anything that you'd like to do at this point in your life that you've never done before yet?
No, I'm at a point. I'm at like a 0 point right now. Like all the things, like I'm like, okay, maybe it's because I need a band or something, or maybe it's because I want. And I think about it, I'm like, I really don't even know if I want that or not. I don't. At this point, I'm like empty. I'm like, I do not even know what I want out of life at this point. I'm like, I'm at a 0 point right now. Maybe I need to be at a 0 point right now. But then my mind comes in, the ego comes in and tries to think of the things that I did get enjoyment out of the past that stopped working the way I wanted them to work, and thinking if I can just get that again or get that again. But that's going backwards.
I think there's no problem with going backwards, but go backwards on the things that were actually good. You got to differentiate. You got to go back. Like, you got to look back and pick apart the things that were good and the things that were bad. So what were the things that were bad? Alcohol was bad. Drugs was bad. Bicycling was good. Music was good.
Well, yesterday I did. I spent time with my friend in Brooklyn all day. I went to a meeting with him. And yeah, I see that blurriness. Is that normal? Oh. And then I got off. I took the 53 bus, and it left me by Fort Wadsworth. And I just I could have went to Grasmere or got on the train, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna ride my bike the rest of the way home. And I just rode my bike the rest of the way home. But like little things, like I lost a lot of enjoyment for a lot of things. Maybe it's depression, I don't know. But
no, it's loneliness.
I'm not lonely.
Yes, you are. You're fucking lonely
all the time, though.
No. I mean, like, you're lonely for the moments of good. You're not lonely for the moments of bad. When you're like dealing with shit, you're not alone. But when you're doing the things that you really enjoy, you're fundamentally alone. Like when you're playing music out there, busking, you're not with like the crowd of people and the crowd of friends you used to be with. You're generally out there on your own. When you're cycling home, back you used to cycle with a whole bunch of friends, together it was awesome. But then now you're just cycling by yourself and it was like a chore. It's because it was loneliness. I know this because I relate to that. Like, you see me make music. I do it alone now. I ride bikes primarily alone, and I get it.
Yeah, but I usually enjoy my own company.
Well, I mean, I still do enjoy my own company. Don't get me wrong. I don't say that as if I resent like the fact that I'm doing this shit. No, I'm actually in a lot of ways I'm grateful that I'm doing a lot of the things that I can do right now alone. Because, I mean, when I like the things that I'm doing now by myself that I used to do with friends are a lot of things that a lot of my friends aren't even doing anymore, or like they're not able to sustain doing anymore, or they're dead to be able to do anything else anymore. So it's
we
like
have a lot of friends from our friend group that kind of fucked or just got into a bad spot, and like some that are just going down that way, and like I don't know where they're going to be in 5-10 years. Like
yeah.
it just.
And then there's some people that just stay still. It's like they got to one point, they didn't go down, they didn't go up. They just stay completely.
I envy that actually.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like I see the same friends doing the same things. I'm like, at least they're still enjoying things. But it's like life for me is like, no, you need to go further, Brendan. Like, can I be like them? It's like, nope. You have to do a spiritual path now. I'm like, fuck. God damn it. Why the fuck me? Why can't I just be like this regular fucking dude who's just like, yeah, we're going to the park tonight. I'm gonna go home to the fucking kid. Like no, they just like that's not what's in the fucking plan for me. And maybe that is a certain amount of soul cycles. You get to a point where it's like, no, you can't. You have to go a little further this time. It's like, but I like this. It's like, sorry, buddy, you have to go further,
and they take it away from you.
Yeah,
they rug pull you.
Yeah,
like,
and the longer I tried to grasp onto that, it's like, we're just gonna take it away now. And it's like, no, please. Like a baby asking for his bottle that you're like, no, you're going to eat food now. And you're like, but the bottle was doing fine. It's like, you're done with the fucking bottle. It's food time now. It's some, everyone's path is different, I guess. And I don't know. Sometimes I say, I wouldn't choose this. It's like, maybe you did before you came here. And the ego didn't choose it, but the soul did. And they're conflicting, and until you can bring your ego, the will of your ego, into agreement with the will of your higher self, you're gonna have fucking problems.
Or maybe like a good lifetime, right? Depletes your max MP, but it's a good life, Whereas a hard life, like, is hard, but it extends your max XP in the next one.
I like that concept. I really do. That makes a lot of sense. I would rather have the lower MP though. It's so much fucking easier. Like, I got 80 to fuck around with, but I'm enjoying it.
So
like, you gotta.
Now the next one is gonna be like really high. It's gonna be like, whoa, I got all this fucking mana.
Gandalf the Grey did not want to become Gandalf the White. He was fine the way he was, smoking his fucking pipe, getting fucking, he lost the pipe when he became Gandalf the White. He stopped smoking that shit. But he's like fucking, he's the Balrog's coming. And he's like, oh, fuck, I don't want to do this shit. But in the end, he's like, there's no choice. This guy thinks, even if we get out of this cave, that thing's going to get out and fucking kill everything. And I have no choice but to stay behind and go and fight this thing for like 3 days straight. And that's what happened. He came out as Gandalf the White. He died. He became a new fucking thing.
A new fucking thing.
Yeah, he's like, he wasn't the same gang. Like, at first he was like, Gandalf. Oh, I remember that name. That's what they used to call me. Like, he died and became a new fucking person.
That was
same soul.
That was an allegory for reincarnation.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Tolkien's work is fucking really, really good. It's very. I like fiction only when I can apply it. For some reason, I can't. If I can't apply it, that's why I like Star Wars. If I can apply it to spiritual ideas,
Star Wars is very spiritual.
Yeah,
it's very spiritual.
But I don't like reading. The only fiction I read is something that I can apply. Like,
First of all, what Star Wars got right, well, it stole everything that got right, but like the Force is real. The Force is, like we were talking about Chi, that's the same one and the same fucking thing. I mean, it may not manifest as like potently as like, oh, Force push or like Force choke or whatever, but it can be as significant as like if I like punch you sharply below the navel, not even that hard, you're gonna hurt really, really, really bad. Now, whether it's because it's just a cluster of nerves there, or if it's because it actually is like your tanden, your meridian, like center focal point of like all like your center of gravity, your center of chi, your center of chakra, everything. Just punch that.
I don't know about you, but I remember times where I liked a chick, and then I realized she was like fucking someone else, and I felt it in my fucking groin. I don't know what that is. Have you gotten that? Like that, like it feels like you're fucking. If you have a chakra there, that's that going like.
You know what that is? That's fear, but it's also potent, and you feel it's like because usually
it's like an energy.
Usually the fear gives you like shrinkage. It makes you sexually or dry or whatever. It makes you like fucking not like sexual at all. But when it's like fear, but sexually related fear, like, oh, like what if my sexual partner is cheating on me and having sex with someone? Like it's very sexual.
It hurts your balls.
Yeah.
Like it's not even the balls. It's not even down there. It's like it's right there where that bone is. Like it's in the pelvic area. It's like a.
Well, I never had that, but like maybe you just had a very sensitive reaction to it. Maybe your chi is just too sensitive.
Maybe that's fucking sucks.
Maybe your chakra points are too sensitive.
Fucking glass
You
cannon.
know what's funny? All right, so it's like there's all these concepts like chi and chakra.
Talking about the grunt, I really gotta piss. Give me a second. I'm
right.
sorry.
We'll take a break. All right, and we're back.
We're back.
Just talking about performance-enhancing drugs.
My insulin. Just took my insulin.
Okay, so Brendan, tell us a story about the scariest person you've seen in recovery.
None of them are scary.
All right, who is the most pathetic person you've ever seen in recovery?
I don't see it pathetic.
All right, who is the saddest person you've seen in recovery?
Well, only because I know myself more. I think me a lot of the time.
Okay.
I don't always show it, you know. But
Who is the happiest person you've seen in recovery? Describe them.
Happiest people I meet in recovery are people who really reach that kind of moment of zen where they really don't give a fuck what happens anymore.
Keep talking. Like, really describe them. I gotta get ice.
Like people that I talk to that really don't really have this kind of faith that everything is going to be fine no matter what. They don't care if something bad happens, something good happens. It doesn't really bother them. They know it's all in some kind of plan. People that think more about others than they do themselves. They lost a lot of their sense of selfishness and self-centeredness and are kind of at a point where they can kind of forget themselves for long periods of time and think more about others than themselves.
So the chillest people, zened out. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the coolest things about being religious. I mean, truly religious. Like if you're not like fake religious and actually religious, like if you're actually Christian or if you're actually spiritual, like if you actually have a faith, if you have real faith in a soul, in an eternal self, in an eternal body that's not just physical or mental. Like there's a soul within you that lives on forever and has lived on forever. So what I'm saying is, if you believe in that and truly do believe in that, the cool part is you do kind of stop fearing death. I mean, you don't stop fearing pain, and like you don't want a painful death. You don't want a death like of a lot of suffering. You don't want to suffer, but you realize death isn't like something to really be afraid of. You know, nothing really truly dies, especially if you think in terms of energy. And a soul would be no different than like a spark of like a certain kind of divine energy, right? Like a divine frequency kind of energy. Oh my God. Sound and like vibrations, like it's like
I have one sponsor will be like, yeah, but I'm just not happy. It's like, who said you have to be happy? And I'm just like, what? You know, like I get what he's going at, but for me, I'm just like, how am I gonna fucking stay sober if I'm not happy about it? He's like, who says? And I'm thinking about the other night. I'm like, maybe he's not trying to say it's okay to be unhappy, but maybe it's the, you know, like the acceptance of being unhappy. Like, I guess happiness comes out of that. If you're able to accept being unhappy, you're not unhappy anymore. It's like the paradox of that.
I mean, I think the real problem with happiness, like in our level that we're talking about in this context, like because there's different levels like to happiness. Like
I guess my idea of happiness, a lot of it's derived from pleasure, which isn't actual happiness.
There you go. So when you think of it that way, like, but the truth of the matter is, like, when you achieve self mastery, like literally everything just comes to you. The point is, like, if you really achieve self-mastery, are you really going to go and covet millions of dollars knowing it's not going to bring you happiness? No, you're not. So it's like you're not going to be rich. So you're not going to have much materially to show for it. So you realize it's not about having anything material to show for your actual inner peace and inner harmony. I don't even believe in happiness. You know, like I don't care about happiness. I really don't. I care about inner alignment, self-alignment. Like, remember what I keep repeating, like the mind, body, and soul alignment? I'm still about that. Like, I've never let go of that. I'm not about happiness or depression, like, or anything like that. I'm about harmony. I'm about my mind, body, and soul not at war with each other. Because when I'm happy, bad things could still happen. When I'm sad, bad things can still happen. When I'm self-aligned, bad things are way less likely to happen in my life. That is, like, so I know the most important thing that I should focus on within my like inner state, within my conscious state, or the different states that I could like tap into or like experience. I want to experience the most self-aligned state at all times because I know when I'm the most self-aligned, I do the least damage to the people around me. I do the least damage to myself, which is a tricky balance. Sometimes doing the least damage to myself involves doing like the right amount of damage to certain people to push them the fuck away because like I know like they're like patterns, because like certain things are just infectious like that. Like you can't let certain people fester around you for too long because then you start festering. It's no good for anyone if you both get fucked. So you gotta learn to like cut shit when you have to. But like other than that, it's like, it's real. If you just maintain self-alignment, magical shit starts happening. Mind, body, soul alignment. Make it so they're not at war with each other.
Yes, this is one thing. In the book I read and the meetings I go to, this one thing is called the 9-step promises. And at the end, they say all these extravagant promises. We think not. And every time I'm thinking, yeah, I think they're fucking extravagant because I'm going to pull them up right now what these promises are. And they're pretty fucking extravagant sounding to me. If you could reach a point like that, it'd be fucking wild. Oh, I got to figure out what.
Another roadmap.
Another roadmap. Yeah, it's kind of like a road point.
Guidepost, signpost.
Guidepost. Yeah.
That's how the Jews describe their faith. They describe it. It's like our faith is like the what we live by, our guideposts, and they kind of like lead you to. It's like, oh, our faith tells us to get married, be fruitful and multiply and have many children and provide for them and let them grow and let them make babies that make babies. That's just. And apparently that's going to lead them to a fruitful life, which in many ways it really can, considering how like nature works and whatnot.
84. Sorry, 1 second. I'm almost there.
Oh, you're looking through like whole fucking.
No, I know what page it's on. 38.
Damn. You really about to read to us right now?
No, it's just a short thing, but I haven't gotten.
All right, read the 9 promises.
But it says if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we're halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far on the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God's doing for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And they don't even say, they don't say economic security. They say fear of economic insecurity.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you're going to have a bunch of money. It means you're not going to give a shit. How do you get to that? That's fucking wild to me.
What I feel like it's a really important.
I'll let you know when I do.
I know a good first step for everyone who's listening. You need your own temple, your own dojo, your own sanctuary, your own space, your own altar, whatever. Like my apartment, this is like my mountaintop. Like where people just like retreat into their cave or their mountaintop, and then they just like contemplate, study, meditate, practice, work out, like experiment, like fuck around with their diet and shit. This apartment is that space for me. This is my cocoon, basically. Like this is where I've been, like, I guess, cooking myself. Like, fucking.
One thing I realized once I stopped drinking, I can handle a lot of fucking hot, spicy food now.
Really?
Like a lot. Like I've been going crazy with shit now.
Oh yeah, because your stomach lining isn't constantly being torn up by shitty fucking liquor.
And I'm like fucking like, I crave the pain now.
Really?
I used to fucking hate, and then like I
remember when
started
you first
with you,
yeah.
But at first it was hard, and now I'm just like, yeah, like I'm just like going crazy for spice. I every night I eat spicy ramen, like whether it's Shin or Bulldog or something like that. Yeah. But like I'm like I love that shit.
I bet you've been a little hornier too.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to masturbate when you're like, 12 drinks in, 15 drinks in, you can't really feel it.
You know what it is? You know what it is? Is because like it's not your mind that's there consciously, but subconsciously and your body wise. Now that you're drinking less, your body knows is capable of handling more stress. So you craving, first of all, spicy foods is a stress food. It's food to induce physical stress so that you could A, take your mind off of mental stress, or B, seek the thrill of physical stress. So you eat spicy foods. It's probably, if you're seeking it consciously, it's because it's like me. It's like I'm an adrenaline junkie because once you reach a state where you're good on a baseline level, suddenly your body craves. It's like, okay, if you stop like, looking at porn, if you stop like, I don't know, like quit staying up all night, if you like start eating healthier, for example, stop eating so much carbs, stop eating so much sugar, and instead eat more meats, like proteins and fats, like that's what I've been doing, and like shit like that. And if you do that, suddenly like things start clicking into place. But when like every little thing clicks into place at the same time, it creates like a massive effect.
I do like the occasional kava tea, though.
The what?
Kava tea.
What's kava tea?
Kava. They actually have kava bars around now, and it's like it kind of works on the same receptors sometimes. But
You ever have a mocktail?
yeah, too much sugar for I'm diabetic.
Oh, yeah.
So like I don't really like. But I won't be caught dead drinking that fuck. I'm sorry, Steve-O, but I'm not gonna be caught dead buying overpriced fucking canned water. I don't drink now, so I'm gonna drink fucking liquid death. It's like you just fucking get tap water. Like it's fucking liquid death. You're paying for like the fucking 3 paragraphs of thirst quenching goodness. It's fucking water. I'm sorry, Steve-O. It's fucking water.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. It just gets ridiculous. Walking around with a can of liquid death. It's like just get a cup of water, man. What are you doing? Like I don't get it. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. But I think I'll just have a cup of coffee or something like that. Like I do drink too much coffee now. Like I drink coffee all night.
What do you think is the most beautiful thing in life?
You order 6-piece nuggets and you get 7 and a switchblade. Now I'm quoting Wonder shows and it's so good. But 7 and a switchblade. No, I don't know. Compassion is very beautiful, I think.
That's the most beautiful thing to you?
I don't know if it's the most beautiful thing to me.
The most beautiful thing to me is energy. Because with enough energy, anything is possible.
Well, everything is energy then. Like,
And it's the most beautiful thing to me.
a piece of plastic is energy. It's plastic. Though even the term spiritual doesn't even make sense because then that means something there. That means there's something that exists that isn't spiritual. If everything came from spiritual, that means everything is spiritual.
Well, I think the words,
Even things we count as shitty.
Well, I've heard this before. I've heard complaints like this because the problem is, you got a lot of, quite frankly, I'm going to say it, idiots who want to engage with quote unquote spirituality, and they're not people who had really a higher education, myself included. And then you have people with PhDs and shit in physics or theoretical physics or quantum physics or some crazy shit, and they get into the same shit. Suddenly they become spiritual because it's almost converging where the idiots and the geniuses both kind of figured it out. It's they both know. It's yeah, there's something there. There's something about this, and it's converging. Both science and idiot spirituality is converging to a point. And I've talked to smart people like that where they're I guess academically accomplished, and they've said things like, we need a different language for this. We need a different way to talk about this stuff.
It was like Carl Jung. He came to the conclusion through science and psychology,
analytical psychology.
And he came to he hit a wall where he's wait, there's something beyond this, and that's where he kind of separated from Freud.
That's when he grew from mind body. He finally developed the spirit side. Grew that third leg.
Funny thing is, that's how the AA program got started with Carl Jung.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, to take advantage of the archetypal paradigm.
In the beginning, there was in the 20s and 30s, there was this rich dude. He was chronically alcoholic, so bad. He couldn't, he was fucked. And he was I can afford it. So he went overseas to go see Carl Jung. And he spent a year with him doing like psychology, and he's like, okay, now I know everything about the inner workings of my mind. I got this. I'm not gonna drink it. And he went back to America, fucked him up again, ended up in the hospital again, went back to Carl Jung. He's like, Carl Jung, what do I do? I thought I had this shit figured out. We worked for a year together. And he's like, and Carl Jung is like, actually, I've been trying to, the only times in history that I've heard of anyone with your type of like alcoholism recover was when they had what I call a vital psychic change, a spiritual experience. And he's like, I've been trying to produce that in you with no effect. He's like, to me, this is phenomena. I don't know how it actually happened. It just seems to have spontaneously happened to certain people, and I have no idea how it works. And he's like, so what do I do? He's like, I recommend you try to surround yourself with spiritual people, but even that might not work. And this guy's like, I'm fucked. You know, like he's pretty much fucked. But then there was this group in America called the Oxford Group, and they were a first century Christian. So it was for anybody to practice, like, you know, complete honesty, complete, you know, like selflessness. And it was like just a kind of a set of spiritual principles to live by. And a couple of these people ended up having certain experiences with this group.
So let's further dissect that. The spontaneous spiritual experience. Spiritual awakening.
Those people were probably so fucked they ended up at a point where they hit such a low bottom.
No. Before you get there, let's look at two key factors that we could honestly say.
He calls it a psychic change.
Psychic change.
A displacement of old ideas completely.
There's so many words for it. There's enlightenment. There's Christ consciousness. There's spontaneous psychic change, spontaneous spiritual ascension, spontaneous spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening. These are all pretty much describing more or less the same phenomenological experience. Now, here's what I think. There's definitely, no one could say they're right about this, so I don't even know if I'm right about this, but I do think two key ingredients is intelligence and trauma. You have to be smart to be able to comprehend this sort of thing because it's a metaphysical concept. It's not anything that we're not talking about things that we could hold in our hands and like observe physically. So it's a metaphysical concept. And you need trauma because if you're not going to understand it if you don't have a need to understand it, and you're only going to develop a need to understand it if you're pushed to that limit by material circumstances, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, bullying, harassment, economic hardship, fucking persecution, whatever, like domestic abuse, like it has like something terrible enough, like drug abuse, like something crazy, you know, like something that's like so upturning. But you also have to, because if you're a retard, like honest, I'm sorry to say that, if you're like stupid and you just go through traumatic experience, you're probably not going to make it. You're going to be stuck. You're going to be more like, I'm not saying you're incapable of making breakthroughs, but you're going to be more likely to be caught in further compounding negative patterns. You know, you're going to be like, oh, duh, I should just drink more about it.
You're just going to live, you're going to try to run on instinct.
Yeah.
And that's it, you know. Like,
instinct without reason. Instinct can be good, but instinct has to be tempered with reason. But same as reason, reason needs to be backed by instinct. But instinct gone wild is no good. Reason without instinct is dickless. So, like, straight up, you need a balance, clearly, of all things. And, you know, back to what I'm saying, like the two...
Well, all of our problems are instincts that we took to a level that went too far. You know, like eating food is great. You need to eat food, but then you start too much is gluttony.
Yeah,
you know, like
but then you're like, it feels good, and plus, every time Dad hits Mommy, but I eat this Oreo, I feel better inside. So every time Dad hits Mommy, I'm just gonna eat 2 Oreos. No one's stopping me. Dad hits Mommy, I'm just gonna eat 3 Oreos, and that's gonna fuck you up in like 3 different like vectors. You know, you're like suddenly you become like it's fucked up. It's crazy how this shit compounds.
You can go either way with anything. Like you can not eat enough or eat way too much. You know, like I guess everything is a certain type of balance.
You know what's crazy? Do you think 100 years ago people like our age, like in our class in economic ladder, would be thinking and talking about shit like this?
I think I don't know. A lot of people say that people like in like Greek were like actually kind of smarter than we are now.
You know what they're saying? It's like just because they're ancient doesn't mean they were stupid.
Yeah, no, it just means they had less book knowledge. That doesn't mean less intelligence. They just had less equipment and things to look into these things. Like, we nowadays, we know about the atom, we know about wave particles and shit like that. They just didn't have, but they had ideas that were pretty fucking close to it. Like, little, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, they're talking about microscopic organisms before we knew what a fucking microscopic organism was. In some ways,
they were talking about atomic weaponry before we ever considered.
I saw this documentary, and this guy went to one of the. There was a tribe.
Was it ancient aliens?
No. He went to one of the last like indigenous tribes on the planet that hasn't been touched by civilization at all. And he went to them, and it was funny how this happened because these people were like, living like in the almost like it was thousands of years ago, and they had tobacco plants, and they would eat tobacco. And he was like, "Why do you guys eat tobacco?" It's like, "Oh, because the gods, they commune with us." And then they tried to form stop because they had a made up language, their own language. So they found out how to communicate with them, and they were talking about these gods, and they're like, "Yes, these gods live inside of us, and they're really small, and they crave the tobacco." And they found out, it was like, dude, they're fucking talking about the cells in your body, and like. But one funny thing about it was I guess they were content. I guess they didn't know any better. But like once they discovered that like we had things like T-shirts and like flashlights and shit, they started understanding how to speak to us. They were just like, "Please get us the fuck out of here." Last night my grandma got eaten by a jaguar. We had no idea that didn't have to fucking live like this. So I'm like, okay, maybe they're not, maybe they're not that happy because now that they're seeing that you can have fucking clothing and all this other shit, these modern things, now they want it. Now they're just like, holy shit, get us the fuck, we're fucking living in dirt. Like, fuck, we didn't know that you people have fucking air. We didn't know what that fucking thing in the sky was. We saw it pass every once in a while. We thought it was God. No, and we realize now people are fucking in those things. Like, well, let us in.
No, so the idea is what happened is, imagine there was like an ancient civilization, and this ancient civilization was so developed. They were able to do things with technology that we could barely even fathom. This ancient civilization was capable of creating people who could turn into beasts, or who were part beasts, who could live to be like 600 years old, who were like beautiful beyond measure, who were super strong, super fast, super smart, highly intelligent, super advanced, and they were fucking around with nature pretty much. And they reached this like pinnacle of technology that like we, as our current iteration of the most advanced species, never even conceived of yet. But then something happens, something crazy that literally no amount of great technology could stop. Like maybe it was like literally just an unforeseen planet in our solar system that just comes around, or something that just
sounds like Assassin's Creed story.
Something that just shifts our pole, like our like the pole, like the north and south pole, just slightly, that causes the massive flood that's written in scripture. In every scripture, every literal religion has a creation myth that involves a great fucking flood. We're not just talking about like a big giant like global like wet no, we're talking about like massive volcanoes erupting out of the ocean, and like fire falling out of the sky, and like crazy shit, like just massive lightning everywhere, just destroying entire like forests. And like it was that bad where it literally destroyed every vestige of known intelligent like advanced civilization, to the point where you only had like handful like a pockets of survivors, with technology that did not survive over the years, but they did manage to survive and restart civilization in a sense through like primitive means, I guess, because they had to, I guess, go back to the Stone Age or whatever, or like close to the Bronze Age. But they had to basically have a hard reset, and that's a really attractive theory to a lot of even smart people, because think about it, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Like, I mean, there's legends about it, there's myths about it. Atlantis and the Great Flood is like honestly fact. Like you can't even deny that there was probably a cataclysmic flood that happened in Earth like 20,000 years ago or so that just destroyed everything. And the only things that would survive something like that would be like the pyramids. Did you know that the pyramids are ancient to ancient Egyptians too? Like what we know as ancient Egyptians had archaeologists that were studying the pyramids, because the pyramids were ancient to them.
Wait, really?
Yes.
So the Egyptians didn't build those fucking
No,
things?
I mean, well, yeah, I mean, they were built in Egypt by quote-unquote Egyptians, but they were so old and so ancient, and the Egyptian empire was so long-standing. Because the exception about Egypt was Egypt had one of remember, we're talking about an ancient civilization with beings that lived to up to like 600 years for a very long time. Now, suppose one of those like leaders of that advanced civilization lived through the flood and all that, and like settled around Egypt, which might have looked vastly different then. And he lived to be very old and created like a very intelligent yet primitive civilization, because he was like only one advanced guy with no access to like immediate technology, but he had everything in his head. He was like 400 years old. He had a bunch of primitive like slave beings that were died mad young, but they reproduced mad quick, so he could teach them what he could teach them while they were in their limited lifespans. And he was known as Thoth, or Hermes, thrice great Hermes Trismegistus, the first founder of Hermeticism, and who was the basis of all like Western magic, Eastern magic, and all that shit. Apparently, Hermes Trismegistus's teachings moved out, which would reach like Buddha and Jesus, and he was like the source. Crazy shit, right? We were really deep on that one.
What's with the giant fucking statues and the lions and the bird people and all that?
Well, that's what I'm
shit?
saying. It's like because back in the ancient like hyper advanced civilizations, they had the ability to turn into beasts.
Why?
What?
Why would they have the ability to turn into beasts?
Because they had the ability to basically manipulate matter using their thoughts. Because they were able to psychically tap into the 0-point energy.
Oh wow!
And they were able to like project the 0-point energy onto anything. Remember what I said before? Like true alien technology that was recovered, supposedly, like with the amount of empty space in the atoms that build up this cup, I could vaporize the entire, like, all the oceans in the world, in the earth. Crazy shit like that. I mean, this is why thought is like the final frontier, I think, of like actual discovery. It's not space. It's not underwater. It's not wormholes. It's thought. It's in the mind, because the universe is inherently mental, and So like, all right, how much? At what point, like, do you think it's possible to do any kind of like addiction recovery without like the concept of God or a higher power?
Well, yeah, some people are able to just stop, I guess. I guess so. But like, I don't know, in my kind of line of thought that I'm kind of going to right now, they say there's a difference between like a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. So like they call it a threefold disease: the physical craving, the mental obsession, and then the spiritual malady.
Damn,
and that's
hardcore.
The spiritual malady.
That's the three-way. We're talking about threes.
Yeah, so it's a
mind, body, soul.
It's a full fucking. So some people, I think, have a physical. So there's some people
physical and mental, but not spiritual. But spiritual and physical, but not. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I know some people some people just go, oh, just don't drink and go to meetings, and I am sitting there dying, and they're like, oh, I just stopped drinking and everything got better. I got my job back, and I'm just like, I want to kill myself, right? But they might have the physical craving. So as long as they don't pick up a drink and set off that craving, as long as they don't drink, they're fine. Then you have people with a physical craving and a mental obsession. That's
so when they're
tricky.
Not physically doing it, they're thinking about it.
Yeah, they're thinking about it, and eventually they just cave and they fucking do it and start the whole process again.
Yeah.
Then there are people who have both of those, and then even when they're not drinking and obsessing, they feel like they want to kill themselves. These are the people that kill themselves while completely sober. These are the people that don't know why, they just don't feel right.
I think the most volatile is when it's like it's not mental, but it's physical and spiritual. Meaning, like, they don't think about drinking, but like they have a spiritual malady and they're physically. So the minute they take that like one shot, it's like an atomic bomb goes off.
Oh yeah, because they say it kind of. Carl Jung actually said that he saw like with alcoholism, it seemed like a low level seeking of spirituality.
Yeah,
and it's like it's kind of like
ketamine.
And
too.
I've heard a lot of people talk about how like they they've always felt kind of off.
Dude,
and
ketamine too. Ketamine is being used for treating depression. I'm like,
yeah, that's how that guy
from
Friends died.
That's low level spirituality.
That's how the guy from Friends died.
Yeah.
He died. He was doing ketamine therapy, and he ended up dying.
Dude.
And he was on alky too. He was trying to find something else.
Low level spirituality. That's what it was. He couldn't find God.
Like they have a lot of people. Like psychedelics are great
Dude,
for a glimpse into it. But
if 21-year-old me met me, well, he would hate me for like talking about God and embracing God. But I'm like, fuck you, little kid. You don't know shit. You don't know anything. Fuck you.
I could be myself a couple months, and be like, dude, you don't know shit, and then like be a week later, like you don't know shit, like I feel like people think a spiritual awakening is like, whoa, no, it's more of like oh fuck, in my experience, spiritual awakening sucks.
No, for me,
it's like an existential crisis every time.
For me, a spiritual awakening was like a sick joke. I was like, it's so cool. Like there's no way love is the answer. It's like, yeah, buddy, it's love, and I'm like, that's like the gayest thing I've ever heard. But it's so true. I am fine. It's like you begrudgingly accept it. It's like, fine, I guess love is the answer.
No, sometimes the most simple, like, what you say is gayest fucking like concepts and like slogans, and then like you hear it later and you're like, oh, it's fucking right, but it sounds so fucking corny.
Yeah. It's like, well, fine. Like, eventually you cave. You're like, it could be worse than love.
Let go and let God. It's like, yeah, I guess. Fuck.
All right.
But it sounds so fucking lame,
Yeah, it is.
But that's
lame.
Also ego. That's like false pride. And
but
ego.
At least I know I could accept it. At least I know I can fucking accept it. At least I know I'm willing to face it with a courage and an open heart. Because that's really what it's about. As long as I can express courage and an open heart, then even if it's love, whatever. Like, fine. Okay, I guess. Like, okay. But then, I don't know. It's not always easy, because you only have so much energy and love your heart's capable of giving. And, some situations, I'm not going to say people, but some situations, some arrangements cost more energy from your heart than others. Some arrangements are great. Some arrangements are, if anything, are net positive for you. Whereas some arrangements are just life sucking. Like some romantic entanglements will just like suck your chi. Like before you know it, it's like, oh, I'm working like this 12-hour shift 5-6 days a week sometimes, and for what? Just so I could sustain this relationship with this girl who I love, but she treats me like shit. It's like, that's spiritually damaging. That's a spiritual malady. It's terrible. It's like almost as damaging as alcohol. That's the kind of shit that'll make you scream at 3 a.m. outside and people are calling the cops on you and you ruin your life.
I also realized the booze was a big motivator for me, especially like I'm like, oh, I've always held down a job and like worked. It's because I wanted to buy drugs. Like I never understood like the homeless addict. I'm like, dude, don't you want to know you have enough to get what you need to get every week? That's why I fucking worked. I'm like, I'll go to work. You're giving me fucking money to buy what I want to fucking buy. I'll suffer a little bit to get what I want to get, And now that there's not that much that I give too many fucks about, like I'm like, I don't even like. I'm lazier now. I felt more motivated because I had that chemical that I wanted to get to motivate me to do. Like certain things like going and playing music at the beach for money. I almost don't want to do it because like I was doing it to get booze money for the night. And it really motivated me to get out there for an hour and just fucking dance monkey dance so I can get my fucking shit for the day. And now I don't like, oh yeah, I guess I could buy a fucking cup of ramen and a coffee, but do I really care that much about that? Not as much as I did booze, apparently.
Now your thing is like, maybe I could get a Fender or a Gibson.
Dude, when I had my slip, I was fucking lazy. I was just laying in bed, and then when I had made that decision that I was going to, oh shit, okay, I made it till after 10. Wait, I looked it up. Duncan Hills, like it's supposed to open until 11. No, just hold out. I waited till the last 20 minutes, and then got up and I ran to Duncan Hills. That's like 2 neighborhoods over. Yeah. I'm like, and really? Where did all that energy come from, Brendan? Thought you were depressed. What did you get? Where'd the fucking energy come from? Like that's a strong fucking pull. That's pretty bad.
All right, let me ask something. Imagine, you remember when you got all that money during COVID?
Yeah.
What if you didn't do any drug? Well, what if you just smoked weed, drank a couple beers occasionally, but you weren't really an addict with anything? What do you think your life would be like?
I don't know. I was going out and like finding like the homeless people I knew and be like, oh, let's go into the bar together and like and then then I bought some meth, but I was sharing a lot, spread the joy. Even though, what am I really giving these people? I'm giving them drugs.
Well, the money, don't worry, the money circulates back into the economy anyway.
Yeah, it's whatever. But like,
What do you think they use that money for? They used to pay rent in their fucking trailer parks and shit.
I was like, I was in the protests for a little bit that were going on in Texas because I ended up in the park and I saw, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll join them, and I did like, but like, I ended up in a mental hospital, like for suicidal ideation with all that. Like I had all the time and money that I could think of, and I ended up in a mental hospital. The fuck? You know? And I was able to like, I bought a shit ton of new video games. I'm like, well, I got money. I'm like, I buy a new one. And I just like loaded my Xbox up with new online games that I bought, and like fucking like just stupid shit. And it didn't really, you know.
Well, now you know what it feels like to have like a little bit of money.
Yeah, not even a lot. Like most people would be like, that's like nothing. To me, it was a lot because it was like double what I was making. The unemployment money was double than what I was making working without having to work. It was a fucking free for all. I thought that would be great. You know, I got up every day, bought whatever I wanted, just fucking went to the bar, went up there, got some fun, bought them drinks. Oh, wait, you know, we can get drugs. So let me get drugs for both of us. How much you want? You know, just like all that shit. And, you know, I had all
Were
the
you
video
still working
games.
too?
No.
Oh.
I had all the time, and yeah, I got laid off. And I got that COVID unemployment, which was like extra. They get like, an extra, like on top of the unemployment money, which was a set amount, like three and change. They also gave you an extra like 300 or something a week. So I was getting like, you know, I was making like maybe 3 and change, maybe tops 400 a week, and now I'm making like 7 and change a week to sit on my ass and do nothing. Plus, every once in a while, I got a stimulus. So, like, here's an extra 1,000 for fucking being a lazy piece of shit, you know. And like, and I was like, I don't have any of that money, and I have nothing to show for that money.
Damn.
Oh wait, no, I did buy an amp and a guitar, but I don't have those to show because I moved and I sold them when I moved back here.
What kind of guitar did you get?
An Epiphone.
Dude, you got to get. You know what you got to do? You got to have some tangible goals. I think you should get a nice electric.
I want to get a moped.
A moped, really? You ready for a motorized cycle?
Yeah, just a moped. Start small here. I don't want to go too fast.
Well, then you're gonna need a driver's license.
Yeah, I need a driver's license for that. I've never driven, but I figure I should.
Yo, if you get a moped, I'll get a motorcycle, and then we could be like motorcyclists together.
Yeah, they're actually kind of expensive, though, mopeds. I'm afraid of motorcycles.
Like we'll be late into the scene, and Jimmy and Evan Cohen's like, look at these fucking losers. And we're like, fuck you guys.
Yeah, I've been spoken to Jimmy. He hasn't really reached out, and I think
He's got a motorcycle now. I mean, I plan to get a bike too.
He's just doing his own thing in his life. You know, he doesn't really have time for anything else.
Aren't we all?
I guess so. I don't know. It depends on what friends you're talking about. There's certain friends of mine that I could just go to someone's house and it's still on the couch playing. I didn't find weird when people like you can see when they really like.
But I went to it.
They're still playing like a PlayStation.
Jay Bright called me up to go to his show, and like he's still exactly the same. He's always going to be, Jay Bright.
I guess, yeah. But yeah, we have a lot of friends that we like. You know, it's weird, man. Like I can go meet up with them, like and we're like drinking in the woods. Like we're fucking 30. Why are we drinking in the fucking woods still, man? Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Who's still doing that?
Dude, I remember when JoJo came, and I'm like, for old time's sake, let's go to the pillbox in Millerfield Woods.
That's cool. I would do that.
And
I would do that right now.
It was weird because we realized kids aren't the same as we used to be when we were, or at least, you know what? Maybe kids were never completely like that. They just, our crew was just, let's go get a homeless guy to buy us booze and drink in the woods. That was like our plan. Kids don't do that shit anymore. Kids are like playing online games at home. Kids are riding their bike. So we're on top of the pillbox, and I don't know who said it first. I think I did I heard like a, oh yeah, and I went, oh yeah, and then like I heard deeper in the woods, oh yeah, and I went, huh, and then randomly we're sitting there like smoking a joint, drinking beers, and these like 3 kids show up, like high schoolers on bicycles, and they're like
BMX wheelie bikes.
Yeah, and I'm just like, and they're just like, what is this place? We're on top of the pillbox. I'm like, it's the pillbox? And it's like, what is it? I'm like, well, it's a place where high school kids go to drink and smoke pot. They're like, is that what you're doing? I'm like, we're like, yeah. And they're just like, all right, bye. And they just rode away. I'm like, they're not interested at all in doing it. We weren't going to give them any. It was our pillbox that day. But like, was saying, like, these kids have no interest in, like, for me, when we were kids, was like the whole idea was find a way to get booze. It was the mission of the day: find a way to get booze, find a way to get weed, find a place to do it where nobody can fuck with us. And that was the mission every day. Wake up, yo, let's meet up. Okay, where are we gonna get our booze from? And that was the kids do not have that train of thought anymore. They're not like, let's find a way to get fucked up. They don't think that. It doesn't cross their mind that that's a thing to do.
They still get fucked up though.
Yeah, but different ways. They might, like, they'll get like their fucking weed vape and just smoke it where mommy can't smell it.
Or they'll do dabs.
Yeah, or they'll do dabs or some shit.
Or they'll do ketamine.
Maybe, I don't know. But, like, they're not getting drunk in the woods like we were. Because I went to all these places.
Kids are still getting drunk.
Like, I remember coming back, and it was, like, Dave and other people. And we went, and I don't want to incriminate myself, but we went into some school and went into the back patio and just got
I was
wasted.
there. I was there.
Oh, yeah.
And the cart.
Yeah, you were there.
And the cart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, I was just like, dude, I'm fucking like 30-something. Like, this is what we did when we were like 15.
Well,
what the
you
fuck
know what's
are we-
awesome? Now that nobody's doing that, that means we could get away with doing shit like that.
Yeah, but
anytime.
it's weird.
Because they're not looking for that.
30-something-year-old dude.
But it doesn't matter. That means we could do it. Who cares how old? Because nobody's doing it. Kids aren't doing it. Grown-ups aren't doing it. So let's just do it. Like, fuck them. Like, fuck everyone. Let's just fucking do it. If cops aren't even... Yo, imagine being a cop in Staten Island and you're not looking for kids or anybody in the woods drinking and smoking weed anymore. Fuck, it's open game. That means we could go there with nobody. That's retirement for me. That's
all we would fucking do.
Nah, that's not what I would do. I'm
Sometimes
just saying,
we had a house party, the parents were gone.
I would look at that as novelty time. If I truly had time, like, away from a girlfriend or away from a family or away from everything and just literally with the old boys for old time's sake, yeah, I would go back to fucking woods or the beachfront or the pillbox or whatever and have a 40 for old time's sake and smoke a fat blunt and talk some fucking shit. I mean, maybe now we'll be a little grayer, a little more wrinkly, smoking vapes now instead of cigs, but it'll still be a good fucking time for me anyway, And especially if we have bikes on us and they say, all right, let's ride down the boardwalk now. It's like, that's never going to change for me,
It seems the universe is not letting me go back to that because,
well, I still do shit like that, dude, even when I'm by myself. You know how many times, like, this month alone?
well, I mean, if I start drinking and shit, I'm going to end up, like, back to where I was drinking.
I'm
again.
not just saying
I'm going
drinking,
to end
I'm
up in a
saying-
fucking detox.
I'm saying even now when I'm not with friends, like I'll park by the Dolphins and then I'll take my bike out of the trunk and I'll ride all the way down to the boardwalk through Miller Field into the pillbox, smoke a joint, maybe drink a 24 ounce of White Claw, and then go all the way through to the Fox Beach part. That hidden bike path where it gets dirty. Go all the way towards Jimmy's old house where he used to live. All the way by like that. Look at the beach a bit, take a piss, smoke a cigarette, take a picture. Look at my phone, and then ride all the way back to my car.
yeah, no, we've done that.
Yeah.
So that's just not where it ends for me. That's the problem. I go off the rails eventually. Eventually, before I know it, I'm waking up, and the first thing I'm thinking about is going to the liquor store and buying something so I can start already. Like, that's the problem with me. I can't go back to just being able to have a couple and then go home, go about my life. It'll
not?
create, because it just seems so. I've shown by experience. It just happens to me. It wouldn't be an Alcoholics Anonymous if there wasn't plenty of people like me that try to do that again, and it just gets to the point.
In the last year, though, it's not like you ended up anywhere crazy. Yeah, you ended up in the hospital maybe a few times, but A, you didn't end up in jail. B, you didn't end up in any other states or cities. C, you didn't get homeless ever. Like, all things considered, you made a lot of progress in the past year than you were doing in the years prior to that, right?
Yeah.
Years prior to that, you were like smoking meth and shit.
Yeah.
In the last year alone, you only ended up in the hospital a few times. You managed to hold down employment for a good chunk of it. You're in meetings and you address your alcoholism. Like, you've made significant progress in the last year than not, I think, objectively speaking.
Yeah, I guess so. But it's just unrealistic to think I can go back to drinking a couple at night and enjoying it. It's gonna get to. I know my mind. I know I know the way it works on me. I'm going to end up, waking up and buying like a 10-pack of nips and then drinking them throughout the day. And now, my liver can't handle it.
I think you're looking at it the wrong way. I don't think it's a matter of your habits. I also think it's just your body physically. I think your body just handles alcohol differently than.
Well, they say it is a physical allergy. That's one of the problems of the disease. That once you start, you have a craving that you can't stop.
Damn, that's crazy.
Like,
Why is this stuff legal?
It's crazy because in my experience of doing heroin, cocaine,
alcohol has been
alcohol
the worst.
is actually it's one of the only substances like that you can die from withdrawal from. Like it fucking wrecks your nervous system. It gives you actually in Ireland they're about to start putting labels saying it causes like so many different types of cancer.
I know another thing. It's alcohol is so
ingrained.
It's so romanticized.
Well, it's also ingrained in our. It's the first thing we've discovered how.
Well, what does that mean? What does ingrained mean?
We've been making alcohol for such a long time.
Okay, so I know
it's in our DNA.
You're saying it's habitual. Okay, I'm saying it's also like romanticized, like not just like habitual. It's not just habitual in terms of like generations of habits, like just like like being afraid of things that slither in the night and just loving to drink alcohol. Yeah, you're right. Generations of past is programmed into us. I get that, but it's also programmed into us on a sentimental level. Like on a culture, like the same way we see, like we look at old Star Wars movies, all wispy-eyed. We look at a bottle of scotch the same exact fucking way. A bottle of scotch, a cigarette, and a fireplace, and an old dog with with a comfy chair.
Well, when you get an image of heroin addict, you get an image of this dirty needle and going.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
it
talking
looks
about.
sad and pathetic. But then you
think-
have drinking like pints of Guinness
It's like,
make you strong.
You're with your family, you're with your friends. You're with
it's
your...
funny because that Against Me song that's called "Pints of Guinness Make You Strong." And, just like James, we're drinking Irish tonight. That song's about the guy who invented Guinness dying from alcoholism.
Yeah.
And, and you think of all the romanticized people like Lou Reed or, Kerouac and shit like that. Died from cirrhosis and shit like that. Amy
Winehouse.
And we see this tip of the iceberg of them, like them being the artist and this creative person. We don't know how shitty their families had it. If you think about it, what's his name?
Such assholes to be
who made Fear and Loathing again? Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
He was so fucking selfish that when he decided he couldn't get away with the things he wanted to get away with anymore, while his kids were downstairs and his wife was downstairs, shot himself in the fucking head. Didn't give a fuck what they were feeling about this. He was like, fuck it, I'm not enjoying myself anymore. That's selfish. I'm sorry. So that his family probably just let him get away. Okay, but whatever. He writes books. It pays the fucking bills. But he probably was a fucking selfish cunt. Hey, honey, can you help with the kids? Sorry, I need to write. This is my process. He was probably a fucking piece of shit. An ego fucking maniac. So we don't see those sides of all these people. We think of them as this cool artist person, life isn't about going into a perfectly, grave. It's about sliding in, going, wow, what a ride. Yeah, what about all the people you fucking hurting? You have a family, douchebag. Like we don't see that part. His wife was definitely not happy that he woke up at fucking 2 p.m., started drinking, doing cocaine, taking like fucking a sheet of acid, and fucking like where's the time for your kids?
I'm writing a book, sweetie. It's all groovy.
Yeah, he's fucking like
let me listen to Jefferson Airplane record.
Process. It's like, no, you're a fucking drug addict, Mr. Thompson. Like, sorry, it works for me. It's like it works for you, not the people around you, and you end up killing yourself in the end. So,
all right. So, next question while I get ice. Out of all the musical artists that you love, who do you think resonates the most with you as an alcohol addict?
I don't know. Try not to romanticize that, but like, trying to think. I don't know. I really don't know. I really didn't. Movies, I think Trainspotting and Basketball Diaries was pretty on point about the. I enjoy like how comedic Trainspotting is, but it's a serious issue. But like they made it funny, but like it's funny. He goes, he's like, okay, I'm gonna get over this shit. I got a bucket for vomit, a bucket for shit, a bucket for piss, 2 tubs of ice cream, a stack of porno, Valium that I stole from my mom, a fucking TV set. He boarded himself in. All right, now maybe just one last hit to take away the pain, and he broke right back out and shit again. Like he tried to take care of this on his own, he just fucking couldn't.
You know what you need? You need a scary motherfucker like me to be like, yo, dude, I need you to take your katana and threaten to fucking slice me across the face if I even think about leaving this room.
Fear doesn't help that kind of fear. It doesn't work. Fear
You'll
is
fight.
not.
You'll just fight.
Fear is not enough. Obviously, fear is not enough because people die all the time. You know, people. You don't think that people are doing these things and not worrying that's going to. They are, but they're still doing it, and that makes them do even more. Because now.
Okay, so then what if you had like a jujitsu master who just put you in like a lock?
Well, I'd be physically in a lock.
Yeah, so you can't, you know, he's got the and he's got a partner to like while he puts you in the lock, he's like fuel, and someone comes and feeds him like an energy bar and shit and like an energy drink, you know, like.
Oh no! Even in the Basketball Diaries, which is like based on a true story by him, like, you know, what happens to him? He ends up getting his ass whooped. He has some dope in his pocket, but then fucking Reggie, the big black dude, picks him up. You know, that was always his friend, played basketball with him. Leonardo DiCaprio was playing the Jim Carroll. And then he wakes up in the house and he's just like, and he fucking grabs him and he's like, please, man, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? I just, you know, that was important. He's like, oh, you mean this? And he's just like, yo, come on, Reggie, I need that. And he's just like, and then he starts like loosening his pants trying to like fix something. And he's like, come on, man, I don't even want to suck your dick. He's like, what? And he grabs him and he fucking shoves him into the mirror. It's like, look at yourself. Like, it's like you just asked me if you needed to suck my dick. He's like, and he still just wanted that shit. And he just he's like, listen, he's like, somebody helped me a long time ago. I'm going to help you. And he threw him in the fucking room and just sat there on a chair like this. And every time he tried to crawl out, he was just like, just threw him back in the room. And then he got better. And then like a week went by, and then you see the next scene, he's back on the streets of Manhattan fucking doing it again. After going through all of that shit, there's so many people, and I've known so many people that go through these horrible, horrific experiences and go right the fuck back to it.
Because they feel like when they could go back to it smarter now. They feel like they could go back to it like more wise.
It's just an obsession so strong, it overrides everything else.
That's the excuse. They're like, this time is going to be different because now I know what's up. Now I know how this works. Now I know...
That too. It could be either one of those things because I know that there's times where you can't. It's gonna go.
But
the
problem
get to a
is
point when it's gonna get out of control. But
the
you
problem
still can't help doing it.
But there's also phases. Like you're the noob. You don't know anyone. You don't know anything. You didn't even mean to do this stuff. It just happened to be there because you wanted something else, but you couldn't get it. So this was there, and then you did that instead. Maybe you didn't even shoot it. You just sniffed it, and then suddenly it like blossoms into other things, and then. Eventually that gets to a point where it's like, all right, I'd rather do this thing. But then that's when you feel the need to learn the economy. Now I got to learn who to call. Now I got to learn when they're available. Now I got to learn like where they're around, you know, and now I also got to learn like if they're not around, who else do I have to call? And now I also got to learn if I call them, will my old guy get pissed off and like fuck me over, you know, like shit like that. And it's like it becomes its own culture. Like it's definitely its own culture.
It's funny because the guy at the liquor store I knew, I would walk in as an Indian dude, and I'd walk in, I'd be like a little bit shaky, like, hey, getting the 10-pack and like 2 10-packs or a liter every day. And he'd be like, you finished that whole liter? I'd lie, like, oh yeah, I shared it. I brought it to a party. I drank that shit alone. and then, but he'd see me shaking, but he's a business, so he's gonna sell me the shit. And then I'd get my stuff and go back. And then I remember I went there on St. Patrick's Day to get some booze for my family. I'm like, I could, you know, my little brother's coming with me, whatever. And I went there, and I'm like, yeah, I ended up in a detox. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, you know. I'm like, yeah,
you got some more of that.
And then he's like, well, you know, maybe just try social drinking. I'm like, never thought of that. Like, really? You don't think I've thought of that? You don't think I thought maybe just drink less? What a novel idea. Like, no, of course I fucking thought of that. Now, I'm not fucking stupid. You know, wait, I'm drinking too much. Cut it back. If I could do that, don't you think I would have fucking done that already, asshole? Like, come on, man. Like, well, why don't you just try to just have like 2 or something a day? It's like, if I could, I fucking would, obviously. It doesn't work out, and I've tried many times. I'm like, if I could just get away with going my whole day and just getting blasted at night, every night, if I could get away with that, I'd get away with that. I would do that. But it doesn't end there either. It doesn't. It might happen slowly. It might take me a year to get up to the point where I'm waking up like, oh shit. Let me just take like 2 shots and then go, okay, I'm on my way to work.
It's another year of doing that.
Yeah, I'm on my way to work, and I'm like, I got like an extra half an hour. You know what? Let me stop here, stop at the liquor store. Just pick up something for later, just so I have it already. And then it's in my bag now. Yes, that's a little one before I got on the bus. Now I put it in my locker room. I'm working. I'm like, yeah, I gotta go pee. Let me just take a quick shot while I'm here. It'll just fucking happen. It just happens to me. I don't even know it's happening sometimes. You know, I don't realize. And then before I know it, I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble, aren't I? You know, they say it's a form of insanity, because it would be crazy to go from that to thinking, okay, I've been sober for 30 days. I'm just gonna try to drink like everyone else does. Like, dude, how many times have we been through this? Just don't. Right? Wouldn't the logical thing be to just, how about no?
You know what I think? You know what? I mean, this might be unrelated, but I want to ask you: do you think, like, let's say you take not me or you, just a person, like hypothetical person. Let's say we get a really smart guy. Like, this guy is really intelligent. The only thing about this guy is that he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in a soul. He doesn't believe in like spirituality or anything. But he is extremely intelligent. I think guys like that are way more likely to become alcoholics.
Yeah, a lot of really smart people, and that's the problem, because
it's a big cope.
Because they're really good at solving problems.
So alcohol is a good solution.
No, because
it's an efficient solution.
The problem is they're like, I'm smart. I know how to handle this. I could solve this, and then they can't. And they keep thinking, well, I'm not stupid.
I could do physics equations.
I could do something. I could figure out a way of solving this problem on my own. And they can't. And they're just like human resources did not help them. No matter how intelligent they were, it actually made it worse. Because then they were relying so much on themselves to solve the problem that they didn't actually surrender or try to find some kind of help for it. You know, it doesn't occur to them that I just actually can't handle this. I can't deal with this problem for some reason, because they're using the same mind that put them there to get out of there, and it's impossible.
You know what's fucked up? That same mind also made them millionaires sometimes, and yet they still end up like getting crippled.
Yeah,
crippled by one fluid. You know, like,
yeah, it's crazy. Like the richest fucking people, like, think about
crippled.
Like, yeah,
because you know what's also worse is that not only do they cripple by something as simple as an alcoholic beverage, something that's so normal as an alcoholic beverage, but it also comes with cocaine use, especially with money. You know, it also comes with hookers. That's sexual, you know, addiction.
Well, it's funny because people in Cocaine's Anonymous, they have a saying that you got to know your ABCs, because a lot of them think, okay, I didn't have too much problem with alcohol, so I can just drink at bars and stuff and be fine, and just, you know, don't get into cocaine again. But the ABCs are alcohol becomes cocaine. So once you have a couple in you, then
I could do a
I
bit
want
of
some coke right now.
Yeah.
You know, it just sets something fucking off. Like, that's why, like, you know, people are like, well, smoke weed, it's not bad for you. I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna smoke that weed and be like, not a problem. Okay, maybe I can take like a shot or two, you know, and then I'll start doing that. So the minute I start to rely on something like that, my brain might go to something else.
You know what it is when it comes to getting fucked up, right? Cocaine is like the peanut butter. Alcohol is the jelly.
I was able to give up all the hard drugs, but then I just drank more. So I think, like, I have a problem with, if like alcohol didn't exist, it would be something else. But alcohol is my favorite.
You know what? It's like I'm like so much like you as a user in so many ways, but it's so opposite, because I do it all. I mean, yeah, I stay away from heroin and opioids and like prescription drugs. But like when it comes to like coke, alcohol, weed, ecstasy, shrooms, acid, Molly, I do all of it. But I never like dwell on one. I just do like a little bit of everything. I'm like, oh, a little bit of coke, a little bit of ketamine, a little bit of acid, a little bit of ecstasy. The next day, you know, I never like get hooked on one, because I'm like, it seems boring to me. You know, it's like, I don't want one genre. You know,
well, that's why it's so very confusing, because you do have a lot of people that use and drink, and that it just doesn't seem, even if they're doing it a lot, it doesn't seem to become a problem for them. There's a very small difference between a really heavy drinker and an alcoholic, and it's so hard to pinpoint what that fucking issue is.
It's definitely emotion. It's definitely something emotional. there's an emotional aspect to it that, like what you just described, like a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. I think like the difference is widely like an emotional lens of how they, first of all, that taints their, or that paints their relationship with alcohol, and it's definitely an emotional aspect. Like, are you sad when you're drinking? Are you happy when you're drinking? Are you scared when you're drinking? Are you an egotistical homicidal maniac when you're drinking? Are you like, what are you? You know, like what do you feel when you're drinking? You know, like that's a big thing. Some people drink when they're sad. Like some people drink like to make themselves feel better when they get sad. Some people drink when they're happy. Some people drink when there's something to fucking drink about.
No, so we have that. We have a lot. You know, I drink because I'm an alcoholic. That's really the only reason. Cause you're an alcoholic. So some people, like, I was sad because I drank. You're a problem drinker. When you're not sad, you're not drinking. That's not alcoholism. Alcoholic, it doesn't matter if you're happy or you're sad. It's just I like alcohol too much. It's very simple. It's hard to. It's this phenomenon.
It's also genetic.
It is genetic,
dude. You had generations in your DNA, generations upon generations.
No, it is a genetic predisposition.
Generations of people. You know how I know this? Because I'm the same way. I have generations and generations of alcoholics in my family too. I know this. I see it in my dad. I don't see it in the women in my family, but the males all have it.
I was like, oh, it's kind of like, you know, I wasn't grown up around it. My stepdad and my mother didn't drink or do anything around me, and I didn't even know I had a different father until I was older, and I wasn't around that, and I never saw him ever drink or do anything. And I got that same way that he did, that I've heard about, and that he goes on binges and does it and ended up in a rehab. And I'm like, genetically, it wasn't nurture, it was nature. It's just purely some genetic factor that made me have a different reaction than other people.
You know what I will say though? When it comes to reincarnation, I could easily see how, like, if you're given an assignment in your lifetime, like all right, you got to do this, this, this. I think a big assignment for every one of us is to fix your family line. You know, like your family line has some kind of weird dysfunction or some curse or something that's just fucking shit up. And part of your job in this incarnated life is to fix that, is to say like, okay, I'm going to try to, you know, repair this line. It either ends with me or I make it something better.
Like, I remember one of those last times we went to 7-Eleven, and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, get your natty daddies. And I'm like, Bren 5. And you're like, why 5? Like, it's not enough. And I'm like, I don't know either, buddy. Like, I was like,
what the fuck, dude? Why do I need to get 5, man? Like, dude,
like,
you don't.
Because it just happens that way. You know,
like, how do you drink 5 24s? Like,
it gets worse and worse. That's just the fucking thing. I crave it. Like, for me, okay. They say like we you know, the great obsession of every abnormal drinker is that one day somehow he'll be able to control and enjoy his drinking. Many pursue this into the gates of hell or insanity, right? And I see that as true to me, and like that speaks to me because I'm like my great obsession is one day I'll be able to control and enjoy it. Now, I might be able to enjoy it or control it. I can't do both. So if you sat me and said, dude, just have like 4, right? I would have those 4. That'd be fucking hell.
You know what you need? You need to do a rum springer. You need to have like one day out of the year where you get like so fucked up.
Yeah, but no, that's the problem. It might not stop there.
Have you ever done that before?
No, but I'm not going to take that chance.
I mean, you slipped.
I can end up slipping before, but I got lucky. I ended up, you know, my blood sugar went low. I got sick to my stomach. I went to the hospital. For one, it's also like
I went to the hospital last time you slipped.
Well, because my blood sugar went low and I couldn't get it back up fast enough. Yeah. And like I did tinkle myself a little bit too. I'm like, I realized even
every time you do drink, it just fucks you up. Like
yeah, like it's just not good anyway. You know, it's just in the first place. Like even if I was able to. Like,
so let me ask you something. Why quit the weed?
Because I have been a pothead before, like really bad, to where I'd like even steal to get it.
Really?
Like yeah.
So you think weed is also a problem for you?
Yeah, anything I could affect the way my mood is, my brain will get a hold of that and be like, need it now.
But you get to say the same about coffee and sugar and.
It's not. It's some things.
No,
it's not exactly
no.
the
Weed
same.
is better for you than sugar. I think.
Maybe.
I don't want to make you smoke weed.
doesn't-
I'm just saying.
Okay, this is how I think about it. It doesn't change my perspective. If
Okay.
it changes, okay, I'm using something to change the way I feel and think about things. Now, coffee might make me jittery or more awake, but it doesn't really change the way I think about
Are
things.
you sure about that?
No, it doesn't change the way I think.
I mean, you don't look at breakfast differently than when you're like jittery and up compared to when you're like dreary. I don't even want to be up.
No, not really. I mean, like, really change my, like, I could be pissed the fuck off at somebody and smoke and be like, oh man, I gotta forgive and forget. That's a spiritual change. That's a complete psychic change. So I can be like, oh, this fucking sucks, man. I just missed the fucking bus. Have a couple drinks. Oh man, it's fucking cool. It's okay. Well, I'm taking life too seriously. That's too easy to make myself change my mind about things.
Well, you know what the problem is?
I use that every time.
Also, you know why that's destructive? Because when you do that to yourself, right? Where it's like you get pissed off, but you drink it away, and you're like, oh man, that's okay. You're also subconsciously more likely to act like a dick to other people, and you project that same stand. You're like, you should be okay if I just have a drink, and then you'll be okay about it too. And that's because you're projecting your own standard.
Oh,
This is
yeah.
how I'd cope with being someone. So if I'm a dick to you, you should do what I do. Just drink about it. You know?
Yeah,
Like,
I'd always
yeah.
try to get somebody to drink. People that weren't like the same as me, I'd be with them and be like, yeah, have another one, because you want. That's why, like, like so many people that do drugs try to get people to do drugs with them because they don't want to be alone in it and feel like they're the only one. So they try to get you to do the same amount as them. Like I remember I had one person I would get pills from, and like I broke one in half and snorted it, and he's like snorting 2 or 3 in a row, and
he's like, dude.
and he's like, "The fuck you doing, man? You only did half it. Just finish it." And he's like getting angry at me because I'm not snorting as many pills as him. And I'm like, dude. You can do whatever you want. I need to hold on to this because if I do it all now, I'm gonna get withdrawals later, And like, but he just couldn't get it. He was pissed off
because
at
he was
me.
more a bigger addict.
Yeah, he was further down the line than I was at the moment. So like, he pissed him the fuck off.
People did that to me with coke, where I would be like content with just doing like little bumps, and people were like, "What are you doing, bro?" And I was like, "What?" He said, "We got to do like bigger chunks than that." And I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, bro." It's like, and I realized they were getting pissed at me because like I was satisfied with that little much, and they were like, they needed to do like a lot more.
A lot of alcoholics will get pissed. Like they'll be at a bar and somebody will be like sipping a drink and like they're already 5-6 deep, and somebody's still like sipping on that other one. They're like, "The fuck are you doing? Get it, fucking drink it already." Or like some people that like order a drink and then they're like, "Oh, we have to go, okay," and there's like this much left in it, and you're just like, the fuck is wrong with this asshole? Like you drank half of it and you left.
I kind of felt that with like porn when I'm like, yeah, I don't consume porn anymore. And like most people, God bless them, most people that I've ever said that to out loud, which is not many, most people I've said that out loud to, they were like, good for you, man. But some people, there's like 2 or 3 people who get really pissed at that. They're like, what the fuck do you mean? What do you have something against porn? Do you think it's evil? And I'm like, kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna call the people who do it evil. It's just the concept is not good. It's negative. I don't think it's good. And they get all alcohol is no different. And
because I'll talk to I have some friends that are like, oh, you're not drinking, that's good. Okay, you want can I
But
drink
every
around
once
you
in
or
a
no?
while.
But then I'll have some friends that are like, yeah, but like, why don't you just try to just drink less or drink 2? I mean, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, are you kind of secretly alcoholic? And you don't want to believe that I can't do it because if you think that I can't do it successfully and get away with just having a couple, then you have to kind of think about yourself more and think about, wait, maybe I can't either. Holy shit. They don't want to think that. So they're like, well, maybe just try, just like instead of that, you don't limit yourself to this much. I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you I can't. Or even if I was able to limit myself, I wouldn't be happy about it because I can't control and enjoy it. So I could enjoy it, and that's me just recklessly doing what my ego wants to do. Or I can control it, and I'm just like I really just want to fucking go for Cocoa Puffs. And I'm trying real. If you have to try too hard to control it, you'd probably have a problem. Like that's the thing. If you have to try too hard,
be fucked up if like you were doing really good in your recovery. Like let's say you were on like day 361. No. Let's say you were on day like 760. No, let's say you were on day like 1800 or something.
okay.
but you still craved, but you did that good, and then you were just having a normal day. You have your own apartment by now. It's not a huge place, but it's like very moderately decently sized, and you're good. And then you get home from like your regular ass job. You're a manager at a nice little spot. You make okay money enough to pay rent. And like that day, you get home, you're sober, you're doing a good job, and then suddenly a zombie outbreak happens. And you deal with all this shit. You barely survive. There's blood everywhere. People are dying. And you end up in a situation with a group of survivors, and one guy busts out a bottle of whiskey.
I think at that point I might just be like, yeah, fuck this shit. I don't know. I don't know what I do at the
Really? I think I would respect you so much if even during the zombie apocalypse you're like, listen, the last thing I need to do right now.
I don't know where I'd be at that long into my recovery. I don't know where I'd be because supposedly once if you do it the right way and you get to the spiritual point, you don't even think about it anymore.
But no, that's true.
That's the point. It's not to avoid it all the time.
Well, this is why I'm like way more excited. I care way less about your alcohol recovery than I do about your spiritual development, because I'm on that same train too. And this is what I like about spiritual development is like everyone from all walks of life. I've seen I've seen people from like trauma from like war zones talk about the same shit. I've seen people from like hood trauma, like ghetto shit, ghetto gang shit. Like they've seen people like their friends' brains get blown out and shit in the hood. Talk about the same. I've seen Hollywood celebrities who went through like sexual abuse from like producers and all that shit talk about the same shit. I've seen ex-convicts. Like the fact that like everyone who's been through the extreme ends of suffering are kind of converging. Even like physicists who've been on extreme ends of materialism, which is its own form of suffering. It's like self-imposed intellectual suffering. Like to like put yourself through like all that like academic like pressure and horror and shit. Like even that is suffering. So it's like everyone's kind of converging on the same point. It's like, yeah, there is a God. Sorry, whether it took you an alcohol addiction, a fucking childhood abuse situation, domestic abuse situation, a rape, a whatever, whatever it took you to get there, we all realize the same thing. God probably exists.
I always had spiritual beliefs, but I never was really forced into actually practicing spiritual principles.
Here's what's crazy to me, right? It's 50 years ago. Not even 100 years, 50 years ago, people who regularly openly talk about spiritual shit, they would be looked at as like crazy. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Now, I do think, like, and I'm not talking about, like, now I feel like spirituality is being talked about in a different lens, in a different flavor, a different genre. It's no longer crazy anymore. Now it's, like, more aligned with, like, actual physics now.
And they don't kill you for not believing in their God.
Well, they can't.
At least in America,
they can't, because the way we've like set ourselves up to this extent, it's like we have to respect the beliefs now, and my beliefs aren't hurting anyone.
Because before, if you would go around talking about like the universe and shit like that, they'd be like,
"We'll kill you."
Like, yeah, like you can't. You're not even allowed to say Jehovah. You're like, we're gonna fucking cut your balls off, dude.
But I think it's because back then they understood the power of it. They understood that it was a magical source of influence, of power, of inner strength, of energy. And once they realized this, they had a monopoly over it. But once that power weakened, and the minute they lost their grip, regular assholes like that just like grabbed onto it like real fast again, and like now they have to correct again. It's crazy how fast humanity like clings to this like metaphysical source of like well-being, power, healing, energy. That's all right. So I look at spirituality through the lens of like, I don't know, I guess in more of a explorational sense. Like I'm like an explorer. Like I like to go out in like unknown, hostile territory and just use spirituality as a source to give me strength to be able to like explore this like weird fucking lands that are hostile and apparently far from grace, but I want to see it anyway, and I want to like, do what I can for it. For you, it's like your focus on spirituality is about healing. Like bad patterns, because that's ultimately what addiction is. It's a bad pattern. Mm-hmm. It's funny how like spirituality can be applied to a lot of things. Some can be like applied to teaching. Like spiritual teaching is also like thus you get gurus. But I'm definitely more of the psychonaut type. I think I love psychonauting. That's my shit.
See, I would too, but it's like, for me, it's like, if I thought about it, but I'm like, I've done all those things. I've had glimpses, but it never let me stay there.
But the thing is also you
know?
were very stubborn and pigheaded. You never listened to the best advice I gave you, which was journal. Start journaling. You didn't write. Like you didn't start journal. I gave you a book and everything. You got to journal, man. Journaling is the best spiritual practice in the world, I think. Nothing beats journaling.
Maybe I should, because that's the second time I heard that today, at least. Maybe the third.
Okay, so here's my format for journaling. I understand it's daunting to hear the words. Just start journaling. It's like, what do I even fucking write? So even if you're listening right now, here's my format for journaling. Every day, I make my journal entries into 4 parts. The first part is what's new, like current events, what's going on. You know, like what are some things that I have to deal with? What are some things that I did deal with? Like what happened last night since I wrote last? Like whatever. What do I have to do today and all that shit. Next is how I'm feeling physically. Like what are my bodily sensations? Does my back hurt? Did I get enough sleep? Am I getting enough exercise? How's my diet treating me and all that shit and all that? After that, the next section is my mind. What's taking up space in my head? Like what am I thinking about? Like what are the ideas that are like occupying the space in my mind? And finally, the last section is my emotions. What am I feeling? Like, how am I feeling in terms of emotions? Am I happy? Am I sad? Am I anxious? You know, like, am I scared?
Actually, I have the same process I do at night. So the questions I ask myself are, they call it a nightly review. It's a part of a 10-step thing.
I do a morning review, I guess.
Oh, we do a morning thing too, but
it's rituals. You see, they're utilizing rituals. I'm telling you, it's all like esoteric, occult rooted shit.
Yeah, but. See, mine would be where is it? Nightly review. So I actually do it through this app now, but the questions I'll say add entry, review, or gratitude list. But
affirmations is important too.
Number 1 is, was I resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid? And then if I hit that button, I can make a paragraph on that. Number 2, do I owe an apology? Number 3, did I keep something to myself which should be discussed with another person at once? Number 4, was I kind and loving towards all? Number 5, what could I have done better? 6, was I thinking of myself most of the time, or was I thinking of what I could do for others, of what I could pack into the stream of life? And those are the 6 things at the end of the night that you ask yourself and write down. Now it's like a nightly inventory of your day.
Okay, so you know what I like about this stuff? It's like I like how it's coherent, and I like how
it's very simple,
and it could potentially be very effective. You know what I don't like though? I mean, no, it's not that I don't like about it. I think it's unfortunate. Like, no matter what, healing takes intelligence. Like, you can't be a fucking idiot and expect to heal from your shit, right?
There's plenty of dumb people who recover. They actually say this program is it's easier if you're stupid.
Why?
Because it's just easier to follow directions and not think your way around it. You know, like thinking, I'll try to think my way around certain things and like overthink it.
You've seen people that are so stupid. They're like, instead of going to recovery, I'd rather like kill the dude that's pissing me off.
That's what they need, someone to help them. They're like, look, we're gonna. Who pisses you off? Why did they piss you off? Where were you wrong? What have you done to cause this to fucking happen?
And he's like, what are you saying, bro? And he suddenly takes a gun, points it at you.
Well, no, they have to be surrendered enough or humble enough or beat down enough to be like, okay, I'll fucking do this. You know,
they have to like lose their son from social services
like,
first.
Like that's what a fourth step is. Like on my resentment list,
like their wife has to leave them. Like, you're too crazy. I don't want to be around you. I'm taking our kid and leaving.
Yeah, like in a fourth step, a resentment list would be like, okay, I hate fucking.
I'm a fucking mother.
I hate Mr. Jones. Why? He tries to flirt with my wife. Okay, what does this affect? Self-esteem, pride, sex relations, personal relations, ambitions. It's either one of these things or all of them.
Is that a coworker?
No, I'm just giving you an example.
No, I'm saying that's his coworker. Also, his money. It affects.
Oh, like
money.
Neighbor. Yeah, finances. Yeah, finances. So, what does it affect? And then you come with the third part would be what was my part? Where was I self-seeking, self-centered, afraid, or dishonest? What have I done to get to this point? Where was I fearful?
It's called the mirror strategy.
Yeah, and you resolutely look for your part in it, disregarding whatever they did. What did you do to make this shit happen?
Okay, Brendan. So let me ask you something. You seem pretty like at a decent level when it comes to like metaphysical topics, or not. I mean, a perspective, I should say, not even a topic. more than a topic. It's more like a perspective or a framework of how you view reality. So, what do you know about like frequency, like vibrations, vibrational frequency?
Everything has one.
Everything has a vibrational frequency, right? So, I want to ask you something. How do you feel about the idea that a vibrational frequency that's so high and enlightened is almost mirroring a vibrational that's so low, where it's like you're depressed, like nothing matters, whereas you're like ecstatic and you're like nothing matters. And if you look at like on a frequency spectrum, yes, one is like hyper fast, but one is hyper slow. And if you see them, they kind of like mirror each other in a way. And one is so fast, it might as well be still. And one is so still, it might as well be moving really fast.
That makes sense. As above,
So below. So what that's telling us is that if you look at two of the opposites of anything, it's just describing the same thing but in different degrees. Like hot and cold is describing the same thing,
It's
but
just temperature.
light and dark is describing the same thing, just different degrees. Good and evil is describing the same thing, different things. Boring and fun is really describing the same thing in different degrees, which is very interesting. Because like everything that is opposite is actually the same. So when you think about like good and evil, it's actually describing the same exact thing, just in like completely opposite degrees.
Well, I think that's why they try to make you practice gratitude, because they both can't exist at the same time.
What I love
You
about
can't-
gratitude is like when you
You
say
can't be in self-pity and have
And be
gratitude at
thankful,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
time.
it's a forced reprogramming of your psyche. Like when every time you even say thank you out loud at nothing in particular, just saying the words, because you're already subconsciously programmed to know what the words invoke and emotionally and like metaphysically. It's your body has no choice but to fundamentally react to the words thank you when it's uttered by your own mouth. I do it all the time. I say like every time something pisses me off and I realize it's like bringing me down like a really bad spiral, I'm like thank you. Like thank you for this thing that pissed me off. Even if I don't agree with what I just said, like it helps so much. Like so much. Just last night, like some guy like almost like literally followed me like to my doorstep, like walking me home because the roads were closed and I had to park my car far away and it was mad late. And he tried to follow me to my door, and I almost like took out my sword and fucked him up. I was like mad pissed because that happened to me, but I was like, you know what? Thank you for the experience. Now I know to carry mace with me when I walk from my car at night. Like it's all good. So yeah, gratitude. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this up soon, but I'm gonna roll one more little tiny joint, smoke it. But let's do some closing statements. All right, do you have any hot takes for our listeners?
Not at the moment. I'm going through a very transitionary period. I don't have very strong convictions as of this moment.
Cool. So I got a question. In your opinion, what are some good strategies to? All right. First, on the topic of alignment, self-alignment of mind, body, and soul. Let's talk about the easier ones. How would you say you would align the body with like the whole? Like stay. It's mostly do less. Like stay away from.
I guess in my new line of thinking that I'm practicing, it would say when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So as long as the spirit is taken care of, the rest of it takes care of itself.
I don't know if that's true, because you could take care of the spirit, but if you're not like enriching your mind and taking care of your body, I think the material world can easily like fuck you up and swallow you up. So I think it's important to be strong.
The spiritual is above all that. It's like the top of the triangle. It'll fall down to the other parts. As long as you take care of the top of that triangle, the other two parts of that triangle will receive nourishment. And a lot of different religions will say, seek first the kingdom of heaven, and then all else will be given to you. Things like that.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's the spirit is not the first, but it's the most fundamental. Meaning, yes, it's the most important. I think I agree with you there. Like, let's say you're strong in mind and body, but if your spirit is weak, then you're just going to become like the Sith Lord pretty much. Which is why, yes, I do think spiritual development is most important, but I don't think, like, let's say your mind and body is further developed and you do become a Sith Lord. I don't think you're like, I don't think you're out of the realm uh, uh, of grace. You know, like I don't think it's you're impossible. Like you're an impossible case at that point. Like I still think it's important to recognize like yes, you know, your body and your mind might be strong, but you have to like you have to understand that like even Darth Vader was saved. All right, at the end, even Darth Vader was saved,
and he was physically and mentally fucked.
exactly.
So once his spirit was saved, he did die. But like,
No. First of all, he was Darth Vader when he was physically and mentally at his peak, but spiritually dead because you know he still had the connection with his mother. Oh, actually, no. All right, I know how we're gonna close this discussion off. This is gonna be like a very controversial element of spiritual awakening because this is gonna affect a lot of people that are my age now, millennials. Now, as you know, like millennials nowadays in the year 2024, the year of our Lord.
the year of our Lord.
A lot of us millennials are having kids now. A lot of us are becoming parents. Now, I think that's great. I think that's awesome. I do, you know, think it's great to become parents and to take that next step into creating life and all that and to cultivating it. But I think it's like if you're not already I guess like spiritually acknowledged. Like if you don't acknowledge your own spiritual nature first before having a kid, I think that's gonna fuck you up. Like I think that's gonna really cause like a lot of problems for you because first of all, let's go back into like Buddhist paradigm. Like what prevents enlightenment? Attachments, like material attachments, and there is no greater material attachment than your own seed, your own child. You know, your own like child that you carried in your womb or that came out of your ball sack or that you helped raise for like decades and decades, you know, like that's serious shit. And and this happens probably more often than not when you're not like considering your own spiritual aspect and then you choose to have a kid and there's no way that ends up in a good, because first of all, even if you don't have a kid and you don't acknowledge your own spiritual nature, your life is going to go through the shitter. So if you don't acknowledge your own spiritual nature and you still have a kid, basically, I don't believe atheists will ever make mentally sound kids. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's like exceptions to the rule, but the rule is I don't believe atheists will make like healthy, mentally sound kids. I just cannot see it happening.
Atheism also, to me, it makes like I argue with all the time because that's a blind faith. Also, you have blind faith
in
that
nihilism.
There is nothing else.
No, well, you're making nihilism.
There's no way you can know. Actually, the most logical thing, which it started agnosticism at least, because at least you can say, well, I don't know. But saying you know there is a God or no for a fact there isn't, that's presumptuous, you know.
Just because I can't perceive it with my eyes.
Yeah.
And
then what? You have a blind faith in the scientists are telling you the truth or whatever's telling you the truth. Like you don't know shit with your own eyes. Like that's so fucking. That's such a narrow.
It's like you
view.
can't see love with your eyes or your skin.
Yeah.
Or you can't taste it or smell it. But you saying love doesn't exist, like you know.
Yeah, it's like the fish doesn't see the water. You know, it doesn't know it's in fucking water.
Yeah.
But. And that's
why hard.
What do you mean water? That's no such thing.
But that's why hard materialism is fucked up because it infected philosophy. Now you got like guys like Karl Marx saying like you know like it's all about materialism, all that shit. Material reality is everything.
There's always going to be an opposite point of view to another point of view. You know, in two extremes.
Yeah, that's true.
I think any type of fanatic extreme thinking is kind of unhealthy. Think you know.
So, but back to what I was saying before, like, do you agree that parents might have a harder time, like, if they're non-spiritual, like, being, you know, like they don't believe in a soul, they're atheists and they have kids, like, don't you think it's so much harder for them to actually let go of their ego because now they have kids, now they have to add parent to their ego build up, you know?
It's another character you made for yourself.
That's what I'm talking about. It's another aspect. It's another attribute of your character. So don't you think that's like how many of the people that are in your meetings are probably parents? A lot, right?
Yeah.
But also, I think like it must be so interesting to like not be spiritual or not to acknowledge a higher power, have kids, and then acknowledge a higher power after that.
Yeah, that might be a catalyst for it. I mean, might be a kind of a spiritual experience when that does happen, that it kind of shifts.
Because remember, I believe, even me and you, everyone that I know whoever will know, I believe we are all the same soul living out different lifetimes in different bodies. So if I have kids, I have to ultimately look at that kid as just another version of me. If I have a wife, I look at that wife as ultimately another version of me. Now the question is, will they see it from the same perspective I will? Probably not. Maybe they will, maybe not. But if everyone looked at each other like that, I think the world would be a better place. I think if everyone looked at each other like just different versions of themselves, I think the world would be a way better
But
place.
then you couldn't really hate the other. You know?
What do you mean?
Well, then you couldn't really hate somebody else.
Yeah, because you recognize them for what they most likely actually. But that's true. If you believe in a source, if you believe in a God, if you believe in a source, if you believe in a conscious universe, our souls are literally just fragments of that. Like our souls are basically water droplets, and God is like the ocean, like water droplets. And once we die, our water droplets return to the ocean. You know, nothing gets added or taken away. It is what it is, and we just return. We go back home. We don't feel bad for it. We don't feel pain. We don't feel suffering. We feel wholeness, completeness. And when we feel enlightened in this life, is we're tapping into that completeness. We can't fully embody like unconditional love. We can't fully embody that metaphysical completeness, because if we did, we get vaporized. Like imagine a mortal man trying to be unconditionally loving. He would get taken advantage of and destroyed, disintegrated by the harsh material reality.
Well, you could do it, but use discernment. Like, okay, like, you know.
No. What we can do is we could tap into unconditional love. And when we tap into, not like necessarily try to embody it, but when we could tap into enough of it, we develop things like loyalty. We develop things like honor. We develop things like courage. You know, like that original godly essence is unconditional love, which us mere mortals cannot fully embody, but we can tap into that life source and create great things, you know, virtuous things. Yeah, spirituality is crazy shit, man. Crazy trip. Did you ever want to leave the country, like go to Asia, like East Asia, South Asia? What if we went to like Indonesia or Bali or something?
I guess. I've always wanted to travel. Who doesn't? You know?
Yeah, what if we went to like India?
And smelt the burning bodies.
Dude, I mean, you know what? Hey, fuck that. We gotta go to Tibet.
Yeah, I'll go to Tibet.
I mean, the food there sucks.
Yeah, but isn't it like old China now? Like communists and shit? Like,
they have to be liberated. Yeah, but the thing about Tibet is their food sucks because everything's high altitude. They can't grow crops. They can't have farmland. It's just it's just the sparse amount of vegetation they can grow. So the food's not good.
oh.
But you can deal with that. I mean, it's not like, as long as you don't have to eat like really unhealthy processed foods, right? Can you survive on vegetation and goat milk?
I don't like goat milk.
But can you survive on it? Like, will it kill you?
No.
All right, good. So then we
No,
can go,
boy,
so we can go to Tibet.
As long as I can get my insulin, I'll be alright, I guess.
Timu. Yeah, I'm just smoking this joint and then we'll wrap up this episode. So anyway, so you're done with cooking? You're done with like, or you're going
No,
to,
my new job is cooking.
really?
Yeah.
You're gonna be the chef?
Cook.
Cook?
It's like a brunch coffee place. It has like a lounge. It's gonna be like
That place is gonna go out of business in the next year or two.
maybe. I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know. I don't
It's
really
on
know.
Bay Street?
Yeah, right by where the McDonald's is, right by Sand Street.
Done. Dude, all the Bay Street restaurants are like it's like a game of Russian roulette. It's like a game of like roulette. Or it's a blackjack table actually. They're just trying to they're all trying to get in. And Staten Island, I have no doubt one day is going to blow up. I have no doubt one day Staten Island is going to become this weird, ridiculous gem of a place because it's urbanized enough. It's connected to a different state. It's connected to Brooklyn, connected to Manhattan. Something's going to happen with Staten Island. That's what my intuition tells me, but I don't know when it's going to happen. And all these restaurants that are opening up there, like your restaurant or like Bin 5 or all those whatever other restaurants that are there right now, like the Pink Elephant or whatever bars and cocktail bars, they're all banking on that. They're all banking on when Staten Island finally becomes hipster. I bet they all approach.
It's been happening. Look at the St. George area, you know.
Yeah, but that ferry
Gentrified.
so far that ferry facility has been super like it's been a drain. It's been a huge waste of money. Businesses have already closed down from there.
Fucking Pete Davidson, whatever, just bought one of the fucking old ferries to turn it into a restaurant down over that area in Port Richmond. That's not an area you just go walking around in usually. But now they're gonna have the fucking Pete Davidson Staten Island ferry restaurant. That's gonna change the whole fucking area. It's not gonna be the place where you just go get King Cobras and fucking buy crack. You know, it's gonna be different.
Yeah.
Gentrification's happening. It always happens.
Anyways, thank you so much, Brendan, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a really good episode. This is gonna be so clippable. Anyway, good night, you guys.
Good night, everybody.